Good evening.
Howdy.
To you. Hi. Hi, Val. Okay. Yep, that sounds good. I'm just gonna give Camilla a hand.
I read all those letters.
Yeah.
Is it
There's actually another one today. See that?
positive or negative? That's
Positive.
one negative.
Yeah, there's one. I have those printed out. I didn't get
This was pretty simple to set up. For you. That's. They could ship it down.
Well, no, I mean, what I mean is it came in, it was a good choice and it worked out really well. I haven't had to do a lot of them. They have all this code.
Right.
I have one or two other things.
Yeah, no, this, it was just gonna be pretty solid. I had to like depot after I put it together, I had to do some adjustments to it. They're incredible. They're so generous. The time, everything, just. Anyway, it's really, but I'm thinking tonight. And like. There are times where I could
They really brought up their idea.
go to the grocery store, do it on my own bike. Just like- I can do it. It's kind of like, it's just almost as fast as buying a car.
Yeah.
So. I'm thinking of asking that Tops, the shopping center owner, he'll put some new grass.
Is one in the corner by the.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
Right.
that's it. I think that's the only one. I've seen somebody, when I've gone to yoga, somebody actually going on this stuff, was just brought his bike inside. He had a nice one.
Yeah.
Locked up. But, that might be.
Wonder
Yeah,
what-
and the-
Working on tops was, then,
Where's it projecting from, Bill?
There's one that they used to-
Ah, okay.
the thing when I was on the- All right.
I really want to talk to Tim about figuring out. I mean, if this is the new meeting, I mean, this, we just can't always be figuring it out.
It didn't cost that much to run. Through this thing.
Yeah, this is just a fixed camera.
Yeah, I think,
Yeah,
Fixed camera and a fixed projector.
yeah, exactly.
Things would be-
because this is the new. And I suspect half the people can't see the screen.
Yeah, that's pretty fast tech.
Anybody has better technical skills than I do.
I don't have anything that can really help. That's. I don't know why it's less clear than usual, but. Okay, get used to
Oh,
that.
yeah, it takes a little while to get used to. That's what I-
Careful on steps.
Yeah.
When I first got them, I was very cautious. Well, I think that's doable.
Yeah, so not showing to get you all on the screen.
That the camera's not working.
Yeah, it seems like something is wrong. We were clicking on gallery view and we can't get gallery view. We can just see ourselves. We can't see anybody else or tie into the meeting if it's happening.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, we can hear you, but has the meeting started yet?
Not quite yet. We've been fiddling with video, just as you.
Yeah, I don't know if you can see us.
Sure.
We can just see ourselves. We can't see anybody else.
And you're not seeing an agenda either?
No, we just are looking at our goony selves. Like I keep clicking gallery view and it's not working. It just is just us.
Well, we can hear you.
Huh,
And I don't know that any of us has a solution.
yeah.
Now that,
Hmm. Well, at least we can hear you. Oh, okay, now we see Village of New Paltz. That's good.
You don't want to see me, though, you want to see the group.
suggestion I have is maybe the USB isn't working or connecting, so maybe try another port. Okay, so that's done.
I wonder if we joined YouTube, if we looked at it on YouTube. I never tried that.
You can see, but it'll be harder for participate.
Mom says, just tap on the screen. It doesn't work. Mom said, try YouTube.
Right. I think we better start. Start. Please. Everybody, we're going to open the meeting. We're having video troubles, but we apparently have the audio working, and I don't want to hold people up any longer than we already have. So I'm going to declare open this meeting of the Design Review Board and Historic Preservation Commission, the Village of New Paltz, April 10th, 2023, and we are starting a little late at 7:09. Thank you, everybody, for your patience. Let us go to the approval of the minutes, and then we'll skip item B in favor of item C, which is HPC 2303. Colleagues, any corrections to the minutes?
I have no changes.
Michael, did you say?
He wasn't here, I looked at him, so, but I wasn't at that meeting.
Motion to approve the minutes
I
is
so moved that be approved.
and all in favor? Okay, thanks very much, Val. Let us skip item B and we'll go to item C, which is HPC 2303, Alan Stout representing Elting Memorial Library with a proposal to erect a finger post sign on the west side of the library adjacent to its entrance walk. Alan, welcome back.
You?
Sure. Do you want to come to the table? At the moment, there's no video, so it doesn't make a whole lot of difference.
Okay,
But
where I station myself.
I don't think it matters. If we get video, then we'd like you to get into that, but wherever you're comfortable.
All right, I have a couple show and tell items. Is this good?
I think that'd be perfect, yeah.
What's on the screen is the application, so let me know what you want me to show. To see, but.
Okay.
Supplement up here.
Do you want me to speak or do you want to?
Let's
Talk to me.
go through, there've been a couple of changes to the
Yes.
original, so I think those would be good to go into, and then Michael was unable to attend last
Right.
meeting. We also have a commissioner who's out ill
Okay,
tonight, just, that's really for public information. We're usually a panel of 5.
yeah.
So why don't you walk us, Ellen, through the changes since we met
Well,
last month?
I sent you a document that included my response to some of the concerns that were mentioned at the meeting a month ago. And you asked for a photo taken from the Starbucks corner with Photoshop representation of the finger post, which I included, and also the signs you asked me to erect showing the relative height differences between the prototype and what would be 12 feet. So in addition to that, there were some additions, particularly, well, let me do this first. There was a question about the color. This is the true color. You can see it's very dark in low light. It's almost black. But I wanted you to see it, in real life. The photograph I took, doesn't hardly look blue at all. But this is the actual board that's ready for routing. The addition that was not included in the original submission is to place a finial ornament at the top. And this is roughly what it would look like. The colors, the directional are not precise. We would want them to match. Actually, this is a paper book, but it's spray painted in a copper color. So I'm thinking we would probably spray paint the directional markings in this spray paint. This is genuine copper, the arrow. It's not completely constructed yet, but the rod, the arrow, and the feathers at the end are copper. This will be made from sheet metal copper by Dave Hakamo. I don't know if you're familiar with him. Dave's lived in the community for years and years. He served on the police commission when there was one. I'm not sure if there still is a police commission. He was also on the ZBA of the village. He lives on Grove Street. He's a designer and constructor in metal and wood. So he has offered to make this for a finial element. That is there. The other things that are mentioned that are new would be the offer to plant some small shrubs at the base of the post to soften up the look of a 12-foot thin rod going up 8 feet. And the suggestion that if you thought it would be valuable, that I would make an effort to straighten out the historical marker. That is, unless it's that the leaning is part of the history of that.
What was that?
I don't know if I need a certificate of appropriateness to straighten the sign, but I work with hand tools. I don't really bring a lot of power tools into it. So I would optimistically, I think I could straighten the sign, but it would all depend on what is encountered as I start to dig down to the base. I'm assuming there's probably a chunk of concrete down there. So that I guess is what I would like to say at this point. Maybe field questions or additional comments from the commission members. But I maybe just ask one quick thing. I'm hoping we'll still go to a public hearing. Some of the folks here arrive for that purpose. With 4 members present, how would that work if you?
We still have quorum. 3 is our minimum quorum. So
Okay, so
we can act as if we were all 5.
and how many votes would be required to issue a certificate of appropriateness?
Interesting point.
It's a majority of
Majority.
whoever's present.
see.
So if you're a 7-member board and there's 5 people, you would need 3. So
Or even if with someone absent.
Yeah.
So
if
in
people
this,
are absent, they don't count. As long as you have
Okay.
quorum, it's a majority of the quorum.
okay, so
So we would need 3.
you would need 3. Okay, all right,
Yeah.
just to know,
Yeah.
that I was curious about how that would work.
Yeah.
So either way, you would need 3.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you for that, and thanks for the detailed response. I should probably say to the public and to, I think my colleagues know, a week or so after the meeting, I took it upon myself to summarize what the concerns were. I think it was a list of 5.
Yes.
And I appreciate that you addressed them in detail. So I don't think I have, I guess I have a small question on the piece that you just showed
This
is a
sign-
little thinner than the actual, or a little less high than the actual
This
finger.
one?
Yeah,
This is identical.
identical. Okay.
The one power tool I do make use of is a table saw. And I'm pretty good at setting it up. The 25 pieces are identical.
Okay.
Well, the board comes in this thickness, but I cut the length. This is 24 and the width, about 3 3/4. So, and if you, one of the signs, actually 3 of the signs displayed are the same material. One of them is a gray background and has the North Pole on it. One is this identical color, the South Pole, and one is unpainted. There's an unpainted white sign up down the street, but they're all the exact dimensions, which conform to a 1x4 piece of lumber. If you were to go to Lumberyard, Home Depot, this is what a 1x4 looks like. And then you cut it to length. So I suggested in my response that it would be very difficult if I got a 1x4 piece of wood and painted it blue and I held it up to you. I don't think you could tell the difference. Because I know there's a concern about using modern materials.
Thanks.
And you're gonna cut or route the ends so they're.
Well,
Or you keep them straight.
okay, what happens on one end, it will be cut to
To a point.
create a point.
Yeah, right. That's
The
what-
other end is used as a mounting.
Yeah, no, I meant the point of them.
Yeah, it will be cut, forget the angle, but the ones on display are cut at that angle, yes.
And then the photo simulation has some in terms of color, some are,
Well, you know, some are foreshortened because
oh, no, I meant some are painted blue on white, some are white on blue.
yes, they're all gonna be blue.
Oh, okay, that was just a
Yeah,
clarification. I was just
no,
curious.
they will all be blue. I have a friend who's skilled with Photoshop. I didn't
Mhm.
do that
Right.
detail, who helped me with those Photoshop images.
Questions, other questions? Stephen, questions?
Just a point, I think those stepping stones are pretty useful. I mean, you mentioned last time
Thank
that
you.
Jillian had almost fallen or something on her way
She
to that
told
door.
me before I even suggested that she has slipped and nearly fallen. So, and like I said a month ago, those are going in whether this is approved or not. So, you know, I did install them and I put in similar stepping stones at my home, and I think they're quite stable. More so as the grass starts to grow around them. I think they're a good addition, whether or not we're permitted to put up this sign. Jillian's happy to have those there.
Yeah, sorry.
Camilla, do you have questions?
Not so much a question, but since I was the one who brought up many of the concerns at our last meeting.
Which one, Camilla? The which concern?
Well, I'm just saying that I was the one mentioning a lot of the concerns.
Yes, you
at the
did,
last
yes, yes,
I just would like to say that it's not the concept of the sign that
yes,
I have an issue with, it's just the placement of it,
yes,
since it's so large.
yes, yes.
And I feel like there isn't enough breathing room around the sign to
Uh-huh.
fully appreciate it.
I see.
And maybe in a more open space, it could be better
Did you probably
utilized.
went there and walked around it?
I did, yes.
Did you
And
feel kind of cramped?
well, because the sign is so big, when you are walking so close to it, you don't really see it unless you are looking.
No, you
up.
need to step back a little bit.
Yeah.
That's why we felt comfortable putting some small shrubs that will grow maybe only within a couple of feet, because nobody will want to observe the sign that close up. So, I think at all points in the diameter, you can be at least 10 feet away. But, you're certainly entitled
Yes,
to
because
that
I
view.
measured
Yeah,
from the foundation of the historic building,
yeah.
that is maybe 5.5 foot or 6
I think it's
feet.
9 feet.
From
That,
stone, but because you can't really go up against the building. There are some stones sticking out on the ground.
there is a little retaining wall right
Yes.
near that basement door.
So
You're
you
right.
couldn't-
Yes. Yes.
that area is quite narrow.
Okay, that might feel a little crowded. And you looked at the Photoshop
Yes, I have.
from Starbucks?
Yes,
Um,
and to me, it just seems like it's a very large sign and much bigger than any of the traffic signs and the street signs,
uh-huh.
and it could cause confusion,
Okay,
It's a very busy intersection, and it happened a few times that,
Mhm.
accidents almost happened. People were almost
Mhm.
hit in the crosswalk. So my concern is that as people drive by, because it's so big, it automatically draws your attention. And, you look away for a minute, somebody steps in front of you, that would be an issue. And I just don't want you to be liable if something happens. I know some people.
you read my little risk
Yes, I have.
analysis. I mean, is it a he said, she said situation? I mean,
Well, I think maybe
I think
reasonable
to be
people who
cautious.
disagree
yes.
situation. Maybe we just leave that as a consideration. Maybe I'll just do a little math. If Camilla's right, that it's about 5.5 to 6 feet to that retaining wall, and we have 24 inches of finger signs. So we're going to be about 3 feet away from what that vertical would be, and maybe 5 feet from the actual edge of the building. Does that sound about right if we're accepting?
I disagree with the 5.5. I really think it's at least a foot longer, but I don't know if I can solicit one of my good friends back here to go take a measurement, but
Well, I don't know that we need that level, but why don't we leave that to further discussion?
okay.
We are scheduled for public hearing, and I
Yes.
have the sense that the public has come out. So let's entertain a vote to open public hearing, hear what the public has to say. I also want to read into the record, or at least mention for the record, some remarks that were sent by email. I have 4 of the 5 printed out, and I may have to resort to you, Val, for the 5th one. Even more,
Yeah.
okay. I last looked this morning, I think. Is there a motion to open public hearing for HPC 2303? Moved, seconded. All those in, Michael and Camilla. All those in favor? So all 4. Alan, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So the public hearing is open. I have a sense that maybe some members of the public want to speak on the issue. Please.
I do. Do I sit here or can I go over there, whatever? Once you get closer to the mic, now Misha's comment is actually in this collection.
Okay,
But it probably will be helpful if people would take it
Where is the mic?
right there, that round little.
You could
piece
just sit in the
Oh, I
chair.
see, okay. All right, so my name is Misha Harnik, I live here in New Paltz. And I think we are here to express our opinions about the appropriateness of the proposed finger post plan outside of Elthing. And I looked up appropriate, what everything it means. Suitable, fitting, relevant, desirable. And I don't think that any of these adjectives actually would fit this particular plan. The thing has absolutely, in my view, no practical function. Therefore, it's not suitable. It doesn't fit outside the library, in fact, in the area at all, so it is not desirable. Short of suggesting mileage to South Pole, Casablanca, Carnegie Hall, and several other irrelevant destinations, I have a missing tooth, so I'm listening a little bit more. As indicated on the mock-up model, it doesn't appear to offer any relevant information. I would sort of call it an attempt at a Dadaistic joke, and as such, it doesn't really quite fit in, although I am sure that Mr. Stout has a very, very strong feeling about this. I'm also concerned about it as a pedestrian and a driver, pretty much repeating what Camilla said. Some people might find it a novelty, and it may be for a while a conversation piece. But in my view, it is not a good idea to park this in the village at a busy corner outside the library close to 2 bars. If Alan wants to amuse some people with it, find for it a better, more open place where it would not be too visible and obstructing, yet where people may want to safely examine it and talk about it. And by the way, what is the projected cost and who is going to finance this project? Thank you.
thank you very much. Thanks. Please, Paul, I'm sorry, Mark, come on up, please.
Okay, well, the word appropriateness was, oh, Ron Fields. And I've been a resident in New Paltz for over 50 years. And if you need me to speak louder towards the microphone, I can do that. As I was about to say, the word appropriateness was, thrown out by,
I'm on the Zoom call that Mark asked me. Hi. It's not an important thing. I'm just eating my soup. What's up, Bobby? No, I'm just gonna say what you're doing. If you where's he gone?
Hello, could you please mute? Is it Nina?
No. Are we on mute?
Could we please ask you to, thank you. Oh. Thanks, okay. Ron, please. Thank you for bearing with us. We clearly don't have this game down.
saying, the word appropriate was, that depends on the definition of appropriate, usefulness. I don't think it needs to be useful in a sense. I would put it under the heading of beautification, of curiosity. Stopping to see what this is, taking pictures of it. I wonder how many.
Let me see if I can get her to me. Hello, is this Nina?
You're so excited.
Nina, are you hearing me? Hello? Okay. That's me. That's okay.
Yeah.
Hello, Nina? Is it Noah? I can't read it. Noah, hello?
Oh, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, Noah, could I ask you to mute for a while? We'll be glad to give you time to speak, but somebody else was speaking in the live meeting. Okay, thank you very much. Ron, please.
Where was I? No, I was saying, I was about to say, how many towns anywhere have something like this, especially in the center of town? I think people would view it as a curiosity, a positive curiosity. People would take pictures of it. I would see this as appearing in the press for a brief time until people actually got used to it, etc. So again, it doesn't have to be appropriate. Nobody really needs to know how many miles it is to the North Pole. Okay. So like I said, I see it as a very, very positive addition to the New Paltz ambiance, if you want to call it that. The idea that it might be a traffic hazard is a consideration. How much of a consideration, I don't know. But I do take that point. But like I said, in terms of it being appropriate, we decide what is appropriate in terms of, is a tree appropriate? Well, depends on how you feel about trees, I guess. So, I think this sign idea from the first time I heard it was a good one, because this, I don't know if it'll put New Paltz on the map, but certainly people will talk about it. People will take pictures of it. People will gather around it, look at it, etc., make comments about it. And I see that as a very, positive thing.
Thank you. Thanks for your comments. Paul, again, if you don't mind staying.
My name is Paul Edlin. Lived in the village for, I have no idea how long, but I came here before I retired, and that was many years ago. Ron and I share a post. Ron is the chair of the facilities committee. I work with Alan, and I was a chair of the facilities committee, and I'm in favor of this. I regard the entire intersection, including the old building, the library, even its new addition, as iconic. And to me, it brings back the center of the villages that were in prior years. And one of the things we did, one of the things I've had the pleasure of doing is traveling. Sometimes on business. My wife is also a professor, and I pick up a suitcase, and when she went, I went too. And one of the things I loved bicycling in England was coming to intersections, and it'd be a finger post up there. I didn't know they were called finger posts at the time, but it added to the charm of the visit. And particularly with strange, unfamiliar names. I kind of like the idea we're pointing, where's the North Pole? And where's the South Pole? We're gonna say this is a book. What we're really talking about is an artistic expression, the idea of looking around you a little bit differently. Where do you put a tree? That's interesting. We've had problems with trees on our property for a variety of time. And when it came time to positioning this, where do you want to put it? You'd want it where it is visible, but not right on the intersection. So it was moved around the property, putting it in an area that we basically think is safe. Someone coming around, I think the big trucks aren't going to be looking at it. I think most people in a car probably won't be able to see it. So I don't think it's a real problem that way. I do believe it will be iconic. People spend time in front of the library all the time taking pictures in groups, and they go look for geocaches, which are also nearby on the property. And this is just one more thing that in the weekends in particular, when the village does a lot of business, all the businessmen do, people are going to love to sit under that sign, probably eat a sandwich or do something else with relative to the village. I think it's appropriate because it brings back the notion of we're the center and here are all the things around us. Some of them you recognize, like the North Pole. I don't think anyone's going to argue with that. We do point to Huguenot Street. I believe he still is Huguenot Street, and some other places that will be there for curiosity. And so you can ask the question, where is that? One of the things we do plan or would like to do in the future is add a QR code for people who do come up, and that would take you to the website hosted by the library, where all the different finger posts and what they are and some history on them. And some of them are interesting. I mean, one of them we added was to Alexandria. Why would you do that? Alexandria, Egypt. Well, my goodness, the main reason is the great library of Alexandria. And of course, then you get into the burning of it by the Romans and being set up by Alexander the Great. So that's a big section on that. And I'm in favor. I think it adds to the iconic look of the center of the village, and I adds it. And I think it does add ambience to the whole thing. I think it is high enough that it's safe. And it has enough there that it would be unique among figure posts. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. Thanks very much. Are there other members of the public who wanted to speak on the issue? Please, if you don't mind coming up, we need your name for the record, that's all.
It's Edith Kohler. My kids go to school in New Paltz, and we spend a lot of time on Main Street. I think it's a really sweet, thoughtful idea. I second what the two gentlemen said, and that question about where is that? Any little moment where I'm thinking about this as a parent with young kids who are sort of curious about the world, but the world that they can perceive as small, right? Because they're little, and walking past something that's near the library where they go all the time, where they're going to say, "Where's that? What's that place? What is that thing?" It starts a conversation. Maybe I show them a map. They learn more about the world. I teach math at a middle school nearby, and geography is a real struggle. It's a real serious struggle. I can talk about New Jersey and I can talk about China, and most of my students don't always know that they're not the same distance. So I think something like this is a great idea. I see it as all positive.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Ethan, could I get your spelling just for the record?
Kohler, K-O-E.
Good thing I asked. K-O-E.
H-L-E-R.
Got it. And it's Eden? E-D?
Yeah, A-I-D-A-N.
Aiden. Okay, thank you very much. Any other comments from the public? Could we turn to those on the Zoom call? See if we. I wish I had an answer there. Okay. While you're doing that, let me, I think I will summarize comments that we received prior to the meeting, and I guess I don't have them all, but for the record, we received from Raymond C. Vandersall an expression of support for the finger post installation at library premises. Folks, I'm going to skip because some of these letters are long. He judges it to be both fun and educational, and it will encourage people to go into the library and take advantage of the abundant reading material programs and services. And I'm sorry, that's from Rose Vandersall, writing under the name of Raymond C. for email purposes. Shirley Warren also wrote saying that she saw the mock-up last time she visited the library. James at the desk explained it to me. I was really happy they were considering creating such a project. Then I learned that many of the members of the Historic Preservation Commission have objections to its installation. I have a different point of view from many of the members of the commission. First of all, I don't think it would be a distraction to anyone driving by. I've been standing with the New Paltz Women in Black for more than 2 decades. At first, I was concerned that we would be a distraction to motorists and cause an accident, but after more than 20 years, we have never caused an accident. I'm sure the Women in Black are far more of a distraction than a sign way up on the hillside. Some of the commission members may have never seen such a sign, and she goes on to suggest that there are ones at Hudson River at Scenic Hudson's Esopus Meadows Park, which she finds delightful. One need to be serious all the time just because you're near a library, and urges a sense of playfulness and fun around faraway places. As far as being different from the original old building, which does come to the issue of appropriateness, well, so is the addition to the library, but I don't think anyone has objected to its being made more modern and useful. I really don't know about the construction materials, but I'm sure that they can be modified. That's from Shirley Warren on Millbrook Terrace. Rich Corzine wrote to say, very sweet idea, we're mindful of my time in other countries, traveling loose, then catching a signpost for wherever it was I was trying to get to. It has my full backing. And finally, from Davina Vora, based on the description, it looks like this will be a huge post that will take up an undue amount of space. It does not seem to fit the library as an older building or the historic sign near its proposed location. In my view, it detracts from the library building design and overall sense of a cute local community. It looks a bit garish there. I also do not see why it is vital for New Paltz to have such a sign, although I admit that I've seen them in other cities and find them fun in general. It seems like it would fit better at Water Street Market, where there are modern art sculptures, or at the bus stop, or some other highly trafficked area more central to town, not between a normal sidewalk and a walkway to the library. If people want to look at it, they should be able to easily walk around it and take photos. In addition, I wonder what places would be listed based on the simulation of the finger post sign. None of these seem particularly useful or interesting, considering some that are listed more than once: SUNY campus, Huguenot Street. I'm guessing there would be other locations listed. Why is Disney World there rather than, say, major international cities around the world? If something like this is built, whether here or elsewhere, I would hope that there would be some discussion of what places are included. Those are the 4 comments that I got today.
This afternoon at 4:30.
And then another from Justin Dates this afternoon. Members of the HPC board, good afternoon. My name is Justin Dates. I live at 16 Mill Rock in the Village. I write to you in support of the application for the proposed finger post sign. I think it is a creative idea and fitting to be next to the library. The location is unobstructive to the pedestrian functions of this particular area, while adding interest to the somewhat vanilla side of the library. Val, to the best of your knowledge, have we covered all the ones that came in?
2 more.
Two more?
Yeah, they're there.
Anybody tired of hearing me yet? I have colleagues who can wait. Next one comes from Guy Visk. Thank you for providing an opportunity to express my support for the proposed finger post sign at Elting. I've lived in the village for over 30 years, worked in the village for almost 20. I consider my personal architectural designs to be rather old-timey, and I'm grateful for the commission seeking to, quote, protect, enhance, and perpetuate the heritage of the village of New Paltz. That's taken from our mission statement. I've reviewed the minutes from the commission's March meeting and would like to speak to some of the concerns raised at that time. There was some discussion that the sign may create an unsafe environment. In the scheme of everything that goes on in the village, I'm convinced that this sign wouldn't create any more danger than looking up at the clock at Ariel or the community event banners on the side of P&G's. Paying attention to the environment is a basic in the way of vehicular safety, and I have more concerns with bicyclists riding the wrong way up North Front Street and pedestrians who jaywalk on busy Main Street. As far as design is concerned, I think that the shade of blue proposed is classic, not flashy, distracting, or garish, and the white of the lettering ties it to the color of Elting's exterior walls. The basic designs of the finger post, I believe, would not compete with the surrounding building, trees, or historical marker in any way that's offensive. I've seen the sample sign that is in place. I've seen it from the street, and I've walked up to it on the new stone steps. The area doesn't look or feel cramped to me at all. Lastly, a community member noted that the pointers will be going all over the world, North Pole, Carnegie Hall, and yes, isn't that the point? I'm reminded of the finger post sign in the TV show MASH and how it included where the 4077th was in relation to the world. I think it's a marvelous novelty that would add charm to our charming village, and I thank Ellen Stout for volunteering again to make our community a wonderful place to be. That's from Guy Visk on North Ohioville. Last of all, I have a message from ANZ Del Favero, I believe associated with Manny's. We're contacting you from Manny's Art Supply regarding the proposed sign. We're not going to be able to attend the meeting tonight, but as owners of the business right next to it, we want to show our support for its success. We have read some of the concerns of others and feel that this project poses no safety threat to anyone It's not offensive, and we have no opposition to this being done. To address one concern about the sign being a distraction that could cause an accident, we'd say that there are signs, landmarks, statues, and distractions everywhere you go in any town, and this poses no higher threat than anything else. The only thing that we'd want to ensure is that Elting Memorial Library consents to have this on their grounds, which is obviously the case. There is something that someone really wants to make, this is something that someone really wants to make happen, and we'd be hard pressed to find any reason to say that we have a righteous reason to come between this project and its success, even if we were nitpicking. It's really a harmless sign, and we've seen Alan's passion about it and hope he's able to do it. Thank you. I think that covers. Okay. Okay. And who's the guest, Val? I can't read this. Bruce and Heather, would you mind unmuting? We'd like to recognize
Yes,
you.
yes, we've unmuted. Can you hear us?
Yes, perfectly.
Oh,
Thanks for your
okay.
patience. We're
Oh,
obviously having a
absolutely,
lot
yeah.
of video trouble.
Yeah, no, no problem.
The floor is
And,
yours.
So, okay, yeah. Okay, can you see us?
Yes.
Okay, so for full disclosure, I am Alan Stout's daughter. So, of course, there's a little bit of bias here. But I just felt like I wanted to share what happened this afternoon. I was FaceTiming my really good friend, and I told her, well, I'm going to have to cut this short a little bit because I would like to attend this public hearing. I told her the story. And so then she went on to tell me about where she lives in Searsmont, where she was in Searsmont, Maine. And she told me on Muzzy Ridge Road, there was a finger post sign that someone had erected. And she said every time she drove up to it, it made her happy. And so I just think that's a consideration. Like when we think about the world we live in and all the reasons for stress and pressure and unhappiness and all these things closing in on us. And if there's something like when you see that sign, is it going to evoke feelings of anger or stress or unhappiness? Or is it maybe going to make someone feel a little happy or uplifted or, wow, that's pretty cool. Like, wow, look at that. I think anything that can add positivity to our lives is really worthwhile. So whether it's my dad or anybody else putting up some creative expression of something that's passionate to them, that they feel is something positive that they want to share with the world, I think that's a good thing.
Thank you very much, Heather.
You're welcome.
Thank you indeed. Yep, we've taken note. And Val, was Noah? They left the meeting. Okay. And did you say there was a further written message, or is that? Okay, I think I did. Thanks. Can I make a last call? Anyone else from the public wish to speak, either for the first time or second
Just
time?
quick response. There was a question about the cost. I'm assuming 100% of the cost, not the library, not the village government, nobody else. And of course, my daughter, I told her about the meeting. I didn't suggest that she comment, but she does actually have a long history in New Paltz. She was born in New Paltz and lived here for 22 years, went through the school system, went to Elting Library regularly, always walked along the top of the retaining wall, and her mother would yell at her and I'd say that's okay. But so I don't know if her opinion counts, but
No, absolutely. I mean, I hope we're demonstrating. We really are listening to everybody who takes the trouble to.
You know, she did have something interesting to say, I thought.
No, indeed. Thanks. If there are no other comments from the public, our procedure will be then to close public hearing and then let the commissioners debate among ourselves, discuss. At that point, we can informally invite people to say more, but the public comment period per se would end. we could potentially. Do we want to look at the mock-up? It's, yeah, can I make a suggestion before we close public hearing? Camilla went to the trouble to mock up a 12-foot version of the sign, which is
Outside.
which is outside.
Because it's really quite ugly, but that's
Oh.
why I could do it.
It won't fit. Our ceilings aren't tall enough. It would fit at an angle, but that doesn't. Almost everything about this application is unusual. Let me just say, we've never had a signpost application before. Let me suggest that we take just a quick moment for those who would like to, just to step outside and see the mock-up next to this building, and then we can come in and at that point close public hearing. All right. Val, I think just leave the camera. The cameras aren't running anyway, but yeah. Let's just go. Again, anybody interested, nobody's obliged to.
Nice resting from fire in the yard. Still, not quite light out anymore, but
No.
I was having a lot of fun breaking gravel and stuff.
You're really having so much fun. I can send you to my house.
No, no, no.
I got enough of my fun that I have avoided for just that not fun. My own soul's on the floor. I did it myself. The benefit of having gravel road. Yeah, but I also want some. Okay, thank you. We're up in garden. I've been there since I'm 5.
Oh, I've been at this 2001.
Oh, 77.
Sorry.
The resounding theme is.
Yeah, and then a corporation, which is, you have to work at the headquarters.
Yeah. Yeah.
The first street on Paul Street, coming from all the way, well,
Yep. Okay.
And,
Roughly live with that.
yeah, there's 3 houses on Main Street and 2 of them are weekenders and I'm at the very end.
That's nice. Wow.
Yeah. pretty quiet.
I grew up on Cook's Lane.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. Currently, I'm in the middle of a divorce, but I have a 2-family just kind of near Haven on the right. So I'm going to get there. But yeah, it's fun being up there. I live right on South Ohio for 20 years. 20-something years in Cook Lane.
Yeah.
My mother's still in town. My brother's on the other end of town in Highland. So yeah, so it's nice.
So, you know,
Throw the name, yeah. Oh, really?
I'll get your quote from the air conditioning.
There's no. Something like that.
Yeah.
They're worth staying around. Yeah, it's funny because I grew up out there. I do a lot of hunting and fishing. I'm an engineer. I saw on fields, that gosh, all of the, everything changed. My father and I were like, we don't live this hunt anymore. Especially when people come to here. We don't find. So we ended up buying like Highland. But developed Okay, just tucked off behind ours. I'll go back to that. So we're not in there and borrow. You know, that's- It's funny now. The Cook's Lane, you know, really big. Oh. One of the cars should hit the tree at the end of the field again. Up on the four-wheeler driving, down on the four-wheeler, the guy's hanging in the tree. Right.
Just like, I saw this deer, bushes. I said, yeah, the deer was nice. And it turns out that he had a problem.
Busy? Do that. Good to get back.
Okay. Yes, yeah, I think I knew that. Are there any further comments from the public? I think we're going to move to close public hearing. Nope.
Thank you for including us. We appreciate it.
Thank you for your comments. Thanks for participating.
Mhm.
Please come on up, and all we ask is that you state your name, and since you mentioned it, maybe
Mort
you.
Koenig, I live in Gardner.
Okay,
I
please.
I like the idea of something that shows you where you are in relation to the world. A lot of people couldn't tell you east, west, north, south, couldn't point to anything. And it's nice to know how we relate to everything else while we live in this tiny little bubble. That's all.
Thank you very much, Mark. Mark, do I have the spelling right? Koenig?
Yes, you do.
Thank you. Great. Colleagues, is there a motion to close public hearing?
So move.
Moved. Second by Michael. All those in favor?
Is it just for?
Yeah, well, is there a reason to keep it open?
I think it might be a good idea to keep the hearing open, just so that, would it be possible, Alan, to put a pole inside what you already have there that's actually 12 foot, just like a
No,
wooden?
I object to keeping that public hearing open. I would like it settled this evening if possible. I don't want to drag this
I
on
think we just voted.
for another
You
month
did.
for no good reason.
I don't think we voted.
Okay.
I was about to ask for a vote. What do you see as the virtue to keeping public hearing open?
Well, if people would see the actual size, because someone mentioned that they saw it from the street and they didn't really see it as an obstruction or noticeable. I just don't know if people actually realize the size. You saw how big it is. And being on top of a 2 feet.
I won't be able to do that anymore.
What's the, have you calculated the minimum you need to have, I think you said 24 finger signs?
Well, I plan
So
for 25, and if I do it with the finial, it will take up a little more than 4 feet,
Okay, like how much more?
4 inches maybe.
Okay,
But I don't want to promise this at all, but I want the signs to be visible. And if it looks too crowded or they're too closely spaced so that you can't actually see, the full sign, I may cut back on the number of signs to make it more visible. And so I would maybe spread 8 levels over the 4 feet instead of 9.
okay,
But I would do that. I won't be able to make that call until we actually put it together and observe it. And, I won't be making that decision on my own. But if everything is visible with the 9 tiers, then it would, I'm pretty sure it'd be like 4 feet, 4 inches,
okay,
including thing occupied. The top will remain at 12 feet.
got it. So again, that's about 7 to 7.5 feet of clearance to the lowest finger sign. I mean, I hate to say it, but I think, the risk of vandalism or theft is, I don't know how significant, but I think it's present. College dorm rooms are full of street signs and orange cones, and not only college dorms, just these seem to be souvenirs to people.
I
So,
worked for several years when the Downtown Business Association was active, and we put out these half rain barrels of flowers, and actually there's still probably 3 of them in front of P&G's, and that was the concern. And out of the 15 to 20 we put out, we probably had vandalism in 2 of them. So our view was, if you're going to be concerned about vandalism, you're not going to be able to do a lot of positive things in the community. You have to accept that as a possibility, as a reality. I can't say it's not going to happen.
right.
But it's, to me, I've decided it's not a reason to not do good things.
Point taken, yeah. As to public hearing, Camille, I don't know. I mean, this has been a pretty robust group of comments from the public. I don't know that we're going to get that much more in a month. I share Camille's concern about the mass. I really think it's tight there, and I have to trust that the Elting board has thought about every other space that it could be. Is the project inherent? I mean, I guess with the book on the finial, it now has a definite identity with Elting, but is it a project that could find another home, like on Water Street, as one of the
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
We're in the middle of discussing whether or not to close the public hearing, and
Yeah.
now you're having a discussion.
Sorry,
Can we make
yeah.
a decision about that?
I think we should move to decide public hearing. So Michael moved to close public hearing. Did we get a second? Second. All those in favor? So 3 to 1 to close public hearing. Alan, back to the question that I was just asking. Is there a space other than Elting that would satisfy the ambitions of the project?
For the purposes of this application, no.
Could I just suggest something? Have you considered the back of the library? Because a few years ago, when the architect was here talking about how to enhance the library a bit better, he mentioned that the back side doesn't really have any interest. And this could be a destination there. There is a very gentle slope. And I know that story hours have there for children. So this could, and there is quite a lot of space there.
I've done a lot of work in the gardens, covered every inch of the space back there. If you're talking about the parking lot up, it's quite a steep slope there.
Behind the bench, it's certainly not steeper than.
For the purposes of this application, we're applying for that location. We'd like the commission to decide, come to a decision based on that particular location.
Okay. All right. Nisha, please.
May I ask, do we?
Myself, Ron Fields is on the Facilities Commission. Paul Edlund, who already had to leave. The Facilities Committee met several times, right, Ron?
Yes, correct.
Let's see, Jean Vidal, who left earlier. There's a group of members of the board of directors of the Elton Library. I'm the only one who's not a member of the board of directors of the Elton Library.
Could
Michael,
you
go
have an
ahead.
opportunity to speak?
Yeah, please.
So I wanted to thank Camilla for her mock-up. I have to say that was very helpful, and my takeaway from that mock-up was that it doesn't appear massive at all to me. It feels very light. It feels like something that's high up in the air that feels fairly airy to me. And I've looked at a lot of photos today of different finger post signs, including the one that was referenced, the one in Portland, Oregon. And I think in terms of the crowdedness, that was one of the things that occurred to me, but hearing Alan, I trust that he will work with his colleagues to determine, what's a decent mass of them, and so that that looks visible but not overly crowded. The other thing I wanted to say was that in 1966, New Paltz prepared a master plan that identified what historically was the connection between Huguenot Street and the upper part of Front Street going up Platic Hill. And at that time, there was an intention to try to create sort of a center around that and make that kind of actually a boulevard. As we know, that didn't actually happen, but somebody tonight spoke about, I think it was perhaps Mr. Edlund, about this being sort of the center of the community. And I think that that's a very legitimate point of view. It is kind of a central intersection within the village and within the downtown area. And I think putting the sign where it is proposed to be put would actually be an ideal place for it. I happen to agree with the comments about creating something that is whimsical and fanciful and a point of interest for people who come to the community. You'll notice a lot of photographs online of people taking pictures of themselves in front of the brick wall on the east side of Main Street Bistro, because there is in fact a painting there. A number of years ago when I was on the planning board, there was a proposal that we had to review for a small mural on the side of what is Schatzi's that was done by Ryan Cronin. And I think all of these sorts of things provide points of interest that make this a community for locals and for visitors to make it more notable. And it feels to me like this is, if it doesn't feel to me like this is in conflict with the library or with the with the relationship of the other buildings around there. It doesn't feel, I haven't walked up to see, but based on the placement that we saw outside, it doesn't feel to me like it's crowding the building. The issues of safety, I have to defer to other people. I don't think that people who are driving cars are all of a sudden going to be so distracted by the sign that they're going to turn their heads and forget about what's going on in front of them any more than they would. I mean, it's a bad intersection, but I don't believe this is going to make it worse. Lord knows I've gone through a lot of traffic review issues on the planning board for years. This doesn't strike me as one that's going to be terribly serious. So I wasn't able to be at the last meeting, but I think I've caught up on all of the concerns that people have. This feels to me like many of the unique benches and murals and other things that we have in this community. It looks to me like a pretty positive addition.
Michael, thank you. Steve, would you like to?
Sure. Just having been a public librarian, I understand the efforts that boards of trustees of public libraries go through to draw attention, draw the public to the library, to make it more of a community asset. So I think that I understand your efforts to make this a part of what Elting is in the New Paltz community. So I'm not as concerned as Michael with safety so much. I have been living in the village for many years, and it is a bad intersection, but I don't think this would exacerbate anything. I think it's a unique effort in the village to have this kind of thing. It is nowhere else. I mean, there's smaller examples on the SUNY campus, as you mentioned, but I think this unique effort is okay. I do appreciate the steps that you put there to make that safer. And I hope that at some point in the future, the Facilities Committee can get that front porch of the old park painted, because it's starting to look a little apropos, not so apropos, but so thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Camilla, would you like to?
As I said before, I have no issue with the sign itself. What it would like to accomplish, that's a great idea, but my concern is really the placement of it. And that's what I do not agree with, not the signs. I just wanted to make that clear.
May I second what Camilla just said?
Please go ahead.
May I second what Camilla just said?
Mhm.
Yes, I agree. Maybe the sign as such is totally innocent, but it should not be anywhere within a distance from a building. It should be somewhere where it really can be walked around and seen. Water Street Market itself is good, but also very crowded. I just think that if the sign should be somewhere, anywhere in Newport, make it some places somewhere else, but not outside a building.
Thank you, Misha.
Can I just say
Please,
something? Putting it outside of a building makes it visible. I mean, if you wanted to put it someplace where it was safe, it probably wouldn't be seen by anywhere near as many people. So like I said, putting it outside of the library where it's visible, and I took that into account when Alan first, proposed this. It is seen from Main Street, it is seen from North Front Street, and it's seen from across the street. Okay, so I think where the proposed placement is, makes it visible by the maximum number of people that are likely to look in that direction, or maybe not look in that direction, except for, the sign. it makes it more visible because now people are gonna look at that, whereas before, there was nothing except the building to look at.
Thank you.
Well, I think this attracts more attention if it were, let's say, at the parking lot by the post office. There is a lot of space and many people go there, drive by there, and it can be seen really much more freely.
But if you put it by the library, they're more likely to walk into the library to find out what that sign is all about. If you put it at the post office, maybe they'll buy a stamp. What does that have to do with the sign?
Is this supposed to be a draw to the library?
Yeah, that's one of the-
For library?
As I see it, that's not the main purpose, but it's certainly a good outcome, at least in possibility.
Yeah, I think that was represented at our last meeting as well. I'll just voice a couple of thoughts I have on the project. One of them has to do with the finial, which to me, I wasn't aware of that at the last meeting. We didn't have an example, and I think that's a big improvement. At various points, we've talked about sort of the whimsy of signs pointing in all directions to unexpected places. And I think the whimsy of Weathervane, our finial that has a book at the top, is a really nice feature. I did have a technical question on how does that, or its final version, attach to the 2-inch pipe? What's the mechanism that
I can
Attach it.
demonstrate that to you. This of course is being accomplished by Dave Kokomo. This base I'm going to remove from here. I think I will. It's coming. Okay.
okay.
This is made of wood, but this matches the inside diameter of the post.
Okay.
So what we'll do, if I can borrow your water bottle.
Sure.
He will drill 3 holes through
Set screw.
the pipe and thread them. So it'll be set screws resting here. So this is all fixed. It's not really a wind vane.
Right.
It won't move. But that's the function. So 3 set screws, and with this depth down into there, we feel that that's a very secure.
And that adjoining part would be wood. It would remain wood.
This piece, I think it's going to be metal.
Okay.
He mostly works with metals. Some of the materials in this mock-up were made just for ease of construction. I don't know if any of you know Dave Kokomo, but he didn't want to come because he's volatile. and he thought he might upset the proceedings. But he didn't want to go too much further with this until there's an approval, especially the book. He said he's very pleased that he made this mock-up because he learned some techniques that will be useful when it comes to making it out of sheet metal copper. But yes, honestly, I'm depending on Dave's expertise in working with these materials that this will be a very sturdy, solid connection, and there will be very little chance that this could come off.
Okay. No, I think basically no chance.
Yeah,
no more than any other streets.
Being inserted, likely without the set screws, it wouldn't come out. But of course, the set screws are the safety measure.
Right. That's what keeps it from being stolen.
Right.
Great. Thank you. My other question, and I guess it's an account of how I've looked at the project. When it was first presented, I really wasn't a fan of the 2-inch pipe. Partly because I favor these sort of classic finger post signs that someone alluded to as, fun cycling around England. I think it was Paul who mentioned that, typically are wooden posts squared off. I have come around though, because it does match up with the historic marker. It's the same material, and I've come around, feel better about that. And the lampposts have a
I'll tell you,
circularity.
the real reason we went with round is the ability to point them in any direction in a 360-degree circle. With the
As opposed
typical
to
squared posts, the ones that you commonly see, they have often just two faces, front and back, as many as four faces if it's a square post. But to be able to point in any direction around the entire circumference, that's why we went with a round post. The primary reason we went with a round post.
Well, I think it's a good decision ultimately. It matches really well with the marker. It picks up the line of the railing,
And the lamp,
which is
right.
circular steel.
The lamp post, yeah.
Incidentally, that railing was at the insistence of the HPC. At the time, there was a
Okay.
proposal to save a little bit of money and get some prefab aluminum thing, and
Oh, I see.
we really dug in because we recognized that the library is a permanent feature of the village, and I think we ended up being right about that. That's history we don't need. Alan, my other question, I think probably my last question is, I am still concerned about the attachment mechanism. It really looked kind of industrial last time, and is there any way to get those collars? You did mention that they'll be painted, so that's going to help. But, the less that screw heads protrude, I think the more elegant this design is going to be, right? So the less that's coming proud off the surface of the finger posts, the better. Is there something you can think of, or have you thought of?
The bolts traveling
Yeah.
through here.
Yeah, I think the less we see bolts, the more people are going to praise the
Well,
elegance
I
of this.
can definitely give that serious thought, Tom. That the thing that comes to mind first is because we went for durability, those are stainless steel. And at about 5 times the cost of
Yeah.
common zinc hardware. Stainless steel is not easily paintable. It's so smooth. And I could paint them cosmetically, but as far as durability, I just don't know that we could get stainless steel hardware to hold paint for the long term.
There are products that etch metal, but I don't think they're going to have much effect on stainless steel. I think you're right about that.
I see what you're saying, Tom. I'm hoping that, those details kind of fade into the background, that your focus, I think, of most folks is on the name of the destination and the distance. And, I think some don't actually give a distance. Some are a little whimsical. I don't know if I mentioned Wonderland, for instance, is one of the places, and it says "Ask Alice." That's how you get there. And we have a couple of 3, I call them wild cards, like that. But yeah, that they're bright, shiny, like the water bottle cap here. That's what they look like.
I don't know if other commissioners share that concern. I do. I think the less, and one of the things I find elegant about the best versions of these is the sign, sort of, embedded within the post, and it's just a very clean look.
Probably, nails or screws, which are easily concealed.
I mean, so much that I wonder if maybe there's a cost saving and maybe galvanized, painted, with the expectation that it will have to be repainted periodically might give a cleaner, pure blue look, which I think people would appreciate. But I don't know, is that concern shared by anybody?
Well, I'm a couple $100 into stainless steel, but if that becomes a turning point.
Well, the other thing is I don't get to make these decisions. I'm really just making a comment. I'll make my very last comment. I think that Camilla is fundamentally right, that it's pretty tight there. And we've heard comments, the majority of the comments from the public have been in favor, but we've had 2 comments from the public and Camilla's concern in our discussion last week. And I don't think that's not an issue. It's pretty tight. It's close up against the lamppost. I would recommend doing everything, if it passes and is approved, doing everything to try to keep the mass to a minimum. And I'm not sure how that's achieved. It might be reducing slightly from 25 signs down, to lose a course or something like that. But even in that photo, that seems to me like a lot of mass pretty tight against the building. But I've come to be comfortable enough with it, but I think it's a challenge if it's approved. Commissioners, any other comments? I think we probably should. Good. Stephen, are you good? It's our motion to approve, which would mean bring this to a vote.
I move that HPC 2303, the application of Elting Library for a finger post sign, be approved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Second. Okay, this is our vote. All those in favor? And opposed?
And I respectfully oppose not the sign
I
itself,
understand.
just the location. I just would like to know that because of my concerns that I've stated earlier.
So it passes 3-1.
Thank you very much.
Camilla's explanation is partly mine too. I'm not 100% on board with this, but I do trust that Elting knows what it's doing, and I trust, Ellen, that you know what you're doing. And I do think that there's potential for this to be exactly the thing that some of the members of the public talked about, which is something iconic that people want to go to and take pictures next to. And I have high hopes that that'll happen. I think the devil's kind of in the details of things like the brackets and ways to keep that mass as light as it can be and still achieve its purpose.
Okay, we'll give that very serious consideration.
Thank you.
That's something I don't think I'll know until we put it up. We'll have to see what looks good, but I am open to reducing the number of signs if it looks too too crowded, too dense, too unreadable.
Great. Well, thank you for a very detailed presentation and response, really.
You mentioned how unique this is to your board. I'm sure it is. You don't encounter this type of situation very often. And I think, honestly, usually your other applicants have a little more wiggle room. And, I hate to be stubborn, but, this is what we wanted to do. And, there weren't a lot of adjustments that we could really make for our application. So thank you all for.
Of course, thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to grab my little show and tells here. Mike will help me. And thank you. Okay, thank you all again.
Again, thank you very much. We'll look forward to seeing its
Thanks,
progress.
Okay. So we want to take waiting. I apologize. I didn't hope that it would go
Did you
this
see the
long.
fellas here?
I did.
He said he doesn't have.
If you wait here,
Why don't we press on with applicants, or does he want to go? Let me just ask it.
He was that.
It's okay. For the window and door color, if you want to look at these, the window especially, I want to order them this week. So if you want to take a look at those. Khaki brown for the side. So. The door can be, it doesn't have to be these colors, the door would be probably. That we don't have to be. If you want to look at those, I bought these are for you guys. So that way you have like basically all the colors now part of it. Oh. We're missing, we can always get those.
This was a really long one.
Where are we going next, Doc?
Everybody, let's continue with HPC 2304. This is a preliminary discussion for 162 Huguenot Street, represented by Mun Doris. Mun, come on up, please. Thank you for your patience this evening. We've had no end of video problems.
All these people left.
Well, there's plenty of room to sack out here. Val's bringing up the application. This is, I think everybody remembers, an application to apply the same standing seam metal roofing that has already been done on sections of the barn to these two outbuildings. Anything to add on?
Well, both of these outbuilding structures are rather small. And the cost of either asphalt shingles or standing seam metal roofs are enormous anyway. Cedar shakes are even more expensive, and their durability is way lower than it ever used to be, because the quality is just not there. And so with that in mind, it seemed like putting asphalt shingles on these outbuildings didn't really fit the structure very well. And since we've already done the barn, the garage, and there's a side entrance to the house, which also the portico is covered with the same standing seam. And so it seemed appropriate that we would put that on the well pump house, which is adjacent to the driveway, which is a very small structure. And then to also use that in the back on what houses the pool equipment, which can be seen from Huguenot Street with leaves down, and maybe not so much with leaves up. And so that's kind of where I was directed to go, and that's where I felt it was appropriate to go in terms of the project.
Great.
If we had put asphalt on, we would have matched the same shingles that are on the house. We probably wouldn't have done the double cut or rough cut, I think, whatever they were called at the time when we took the cedar shakes off and put those.
Yeah, those
the
were,
reveal was thicker.
yeah, those are architectural grade.
Right, and then on the guest house we went with the thinner ones, but they were also matching. But but they wanted in the neighborhood of $15,000 to do metal. And that required putting an extra piece of sheathing down on the building that houses the pool equipment. Because when they nailed cedar shakes on, they actually like staple them on. And so if you put a metal roof on there and there's a staple that was ignored or missed, it would destroy the
compromises,
metal roof.
yeah.
So they were gonna put an extra piece of sheathing down, 1/2 inch sheathing. So their cost was inclusive of that extra sheathing and hauling away all the trash and whatnot.
Got it. Colleagues, this seems like a very good solution to me. I mean, it's a high quality roofing material. It's already present on the property.
I think for the uniformity of appearance, it's entirely appropriate.
Yeah.
Michael, any?
Amon, let me just be clear. So the pool house and the pump house, those are the roofs you're talking about,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then so you'll be standing metal on those. Okay,
Yeah, it matched the garage and the barn and
right. So the house would be,
the entrance.
right, the house and the other building would, the house and the
guest house.
guest house would would remain with the asphalt.
Those had recently been redone, maybe. I don't know, 5 years
Yeah.
ago, 6 years ago.
Yeah, somewhere in there. And we approved that.
No, I mean, I think that this is fine.
Yeah. Okay, I don't see any problem. The fact that the pool house, pool, is it, do you call it pool pump house?
I call it a pool house,
Pool house.
but it's not for changing or anything. It simply houses the.
It's the pump and the equipment, yeah. It is slightly visible from Huguenot Street, so I'm sort of on the fence about whether this needs a public hearing or not. I can't imagine.
It's barely visible and not in the sun.
Is it?
It's a seasonal visibility.
Okay.
Because of the trees that are in between it, yeah.
So the question to me is whether we would, if at a public hearing, someone objected to standing seam metal, would we ever consider that objection? And I'm inclined to say no, that this is transparently an appropriate material.
There's no neighbors who could see, who are situated such that they would see that pool house from their property. So the only people who could see it would be the thousands of people who walk by every day. I mean, I'm facetious, but and it's hard to imagine that anybody would have an issue with that. It's just it's a small component of the whole property.
Right.
There's much more would catch your eye than that, I think. So.
I think it's entirely appropriate.
I can't imagine a scenario in which we would entertain that objection. I can't imagine that being an objection. So I'm comfortable not requiring public hearing, which means that we could vote on the merits of it now.
Do you have a motion?
If we're comfortable doing that. Yes.
I move for approval of HPC 2304, Mont Doris, 162 Huguenot Street, roofing project.
Seconded by Camilla. Colleagues, all in favor? Okay. Wasn't that easy?
Wow.
Nothing like good materials.
It's really fun listening.
We've had two very complicated cases in our time. One was that, the other was a wigwam. Yeah, there really is no playbook for what you do about approving a wigwam. We approved it for a period of time, renewable. But Mom, thank you for.
I certainly have a lot of what's the word? I really think that what the commission does is extraordinary, and how you hold everybody's feet to the fire in making certain that what they're going to do actually is appropriate. And so kudos
Thank
to you
you
guys.
Well, we hope we get it right most of the time, all the time. But
Well, I think in preparation for it, it's nice to talk to commission members. I think when we did the garage and the barn and whatnot, we asked you to come out and say, what are you looking for?
Right.
And so I think that's important, you know, to get your feedback.
We appreciate that. We also appreciate having good, clear applications and, you know, with an eye to quality products from the beginning. That
Right.
just makes it so much easier. Well, thank you.
Okay, great.
Close to bedtime, right?
I'm sorry?
Close to your bedtime,
No, that's all right.
as you were joking. Right.
Thanks very much.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks very much, Lon. Bye. Good night. Let's go ahead to Jeff Noel, HPC 1010, which is an extension of the original project to install roof-mounted solar panels at 160. Please come on.
Sure. Yeah, so I know this came up a little quickly, but basically what we're doing back in I didn't realize it was 2010 already. So we've had solar panels on the house 12 years. And we're proposing to add some. The difference, yeah, okay. So the backside, which is all orange, this represents the quality of the sunshine and how much energy it can produce. This is from the solar provider. The backside has solar panels. Today, that's the front piece is Huguenot Street. We're proposing putting some on the front side of the roof because that is, of the rest of the roof, that is the optimal area for sun production of electricity from the sun. So there's 9 there. There is a proposal that a second piece is on the back side of the garage. That's the 4 that you see. That is a little unclear. We actually need to have the engineer double check whether that's a good spot based on the trees that are nearby or not. But the main question is, and that is not viewable from Huguenot Street. Again, it's like the back side of the house. As a matter of fact, it'd be extraordinarily hard because there's a large hedge there that you would never see it. But the front side, I think the question about is what it is visible from the street, the people that walk by.
Yeah.
I took a photo just over the weekend, but you don't have it. But just standing on the street, and I said, "Oh, I wonder what this looks like," and I brought it with me just to give you a sense.
And I did the same, and I'm going to try to call that photo out.
This is what essentially the house is, and you can see the portion. There is a portion of the roof you're going to see the solar panels on.
I think I can supplement that with an.
Yeah, you might have a Google Street. Yep, there you
No,
go.
that was me doing a site visit and snooping around, sorry.
Okay.
So if I understand correctly, in the purple zone to the back of so the rear of the house in the orange zone already has panels.
Correct. They're not depicted in that picture.
But that's sort of optimal.
Yeah, that
sunshine.
is the best spot. That was done in 2010.
Okay.
We are looking at adding the piece in the back. It's covered up with the black, but that actually is more orange because of the way the sun doesn't get shaded. I mean, it's not perfect, but of the rest of the roof, that's the only possibility. And where the black is on the front, the 9 panels, that's really
that's
main
optimal.
proposal. That's optimal. And that's the one that's really visible.
Okay. When the project was first explained to me, what I saw, and you're probably anticipating this, street facing is a much different question from rear facing. And I think that's probably what we need to talk about. By and large, we try to keep all equipment, off the Huguenot Street side whenever possible. There's the very first solar panel experiment we were asked to weigh in on is the carport on Mulberry.
Yeah.
And we had no guidance. It was so early. I don't even know how long ago, 15, 18 years ago. We had no guidance from the State Office of Historic Preservation on that, and did our best. And I'm not sure we got that one right, honestly. But since then, you know, the guidance definitely urges us to keep panels off the public-facing side. So I think at a minimum, we'd have to bring the question to a public hearing. Do you have any sense from what the engineer has said or might say, what going just with the non-street facing side would do to the energy goals that you're seeking?
Yeah, so I can give you the numbers they gave me. They need to validate them, but they're pretty good. I mean, this is the same company that put on the original set. It's been spectacular. It's produced exactly what they said.
Wonderful.
Within like 2% over a 10-year period. Actually, it's a little more than they said, but the point is their estimates were excellent. The front 9 would produce 2,600 kilowatt hours in a given year. And the back 4 produce about 900 kilowatt hours. So it's significantly less. As a matter of fact, it's partially, the additional cost may make it not viable even to use those, to be quite honest. I said, what's the max? I actually wanted them, which would, you know, is more viewable, is the spot you see that's bright orange there, but it's not large enough to support panels, is what I've been told. Again, the engineer he was supposed to be there today. He called me up with something came up Friday and he has to postpone this Friday. So I don't have the data. I thought I'd know everything tonight, but it seems like, the bigger question is, what do we need to do if we want to proceed with the project so I can be properly prepared?
Okay, yeah. May I ask one other question? So
Sure.
4 panels are depicted or proposed for the garage roof. Is that the maximum that could go there?
That they are optimally placed at the only spot on that roof that is beyond is more orange.
Okay.
And we did look at using that roof solely, and it gets a lot more shade. First of all, in the winter, you can see the deeper purple because that's the shadow of the house. In the summer, there are trees that block the other end a little bit as well. That is the highest spot. I mean, I guess I can ask. I did not ask the calculation, but just visibly from the colors, it was quite obvious that the coloration was significantly different than I'm not sure. I can check with him. I mean, it's not hard for me to ask the question. He's got to come out and check the materials underneath. What does that produce? But it just may not be viable economically.
Yeah, I can understand that. Colleagues, there's a precedent at 118 Huguenot Street. We ended up approving an array there. That was subject to public hearing. That also was probably a good decade ago.
Yeah, it was shortly after ours.
Yeah, that maybe, yeah.
Yeah, whatever. It's been a long time. So
one of the things that made that easier to approve is they deliberately went with low profile and uniform color panels. And I didn't know much about this at the time, but they're panels that have a very obvious kind of octagonal pattern that really stand out. And there are panels that ride quite a bit higher off the roof than the ones that they ended up going with.
I can ask. I don't know. I didn't ask that question with the person I was working with, but
it might be worth asking that. You know, so I guess what I'm saying is there is a precedent for solar panels on Huguenot Street. if anything, that was probably a more historically sensitive part of Huguenot Street.
Yeah.
But it was a really serious question. I mean, it sent us to.
And it's much
all the-
larger. I mean, it's clearly on the roof. It's extremely visible because of the pitch, but I understand. I mean,
But at the same time, one of the directives from Albany, or, the state of New York is we want to encourage solar.
Right.
That is a, an undoubted good thing, and that just has to be balanced with preservation goals. What I would suggest is scheduling a public hearing that, as you may know, gets you into neighbor notification. There's a signage requirement. Val has a whole packet that explains it all, but it is a little bit of work at a modest expense. You have to notarize an affidavit stating that you mailed the letters, and the sign has to be up for 10 days.
10 days.
10 days prior to the hearing. Anyway, all of this is explicit in the packet.
okay.
So if that's agreeable, it would also, help to have those numbers that will come to you.
I will know them this week. We should question. That's what they're refining as part of the visit.
Does
So
that seem like the way forward? I don't think that this is something we can do without public hearing. It's just too busy.
Yeah, that's fine. This is a dilemma.
But we're not the first to have asked. So
well, so let me just ask a little bit about it, just so I've never, I don't think even with our addition, when maybe we did do a public hearing edition.
we did.
15
would
or
have,
18 years, it's a long time. But anyway, how long does, you said 10 days it needs to be posted. I'm just curious, is there a follow-on meeting where everything you review, like at your next meeting in May? Where you
Correct. So-
review the contents of the statements?
And
Or-
presumably we would have a decision in May. I should have made
Okay,
that.
that's
that
really,
clear.
that's what I'm
Yeah.
figuring out. So it's
Yeah.
one.
And that's provided, I mean, we can't legally vote on something that hasn't met those notification
Sure, I understand.
requirements, but Val will get right on getting you the package and.
Is that all that I mean, I can get you the numbers as we discuss. I can find out the material about the dimensions off the roof, all that. I really don't know. What else might you need for a solar system that I can make sure I gather as I probe this engineer?
They're just tying into the existing system, right?
It is actually a slightly different technology, but yes, it ties into the same panel.
Okay.
One is,
So the point being, you don't need a lot more, like, there's not going to be conduit
no,
on the side of your building.
no,
none of that.
it's going
Yeah,
to
that-
probably go over the roof
Right.
and then down into the other one.
That's
Because
all.
it goes into the same
Yeah,
electric
that's fine.
box. Yeah, there's not gonna be much else.
Yeah.
I mean, I can ask for sure, but I can't imagine because they told me it's gonna tie into the other, where the box. It's one connection.
That makes total sense. I think a photo such as this would help.
Sure.
And I mean, it's
A
easy.
photo like that for the record, for the
Well, I think-
application, because I actually haven't filled out the application.
Yeah, I think we should go to a new application. So the first move was just to kind of reopen what
Was
now
it a-
13-year-old application. I don't think we can legally do that.
Okay,
So if Val can
easy
start
enough.
by getting you an application form, a photo of the two sides, that's probably a useful
Yep.
image to include. And then just a description of what's intended. It's also helpful if you can talk to your neighbors. That's a question on the,
yes, I saw that
application.
from the 2010 application.
that's probably the most important.
Okay.
thing.
So-
Good.
Sure. Sure. Okay, so you're sending electronic packet to me?
Probably hand deliver it.
Okay, that's fine.
Good.
Okay,
Thanks very much.
Yep, thank you.
We'll see you in May.
Thank you.
Okay.
Everybody, let's move on. We now have a couple of consultations. Oh, okay. Yes, I think it is. Okay, my only question on that, Bill, was, it's only partially visible from the street. And it's hedged. And it's an herb garden.
It doesn't even sound like part of our purview, honestly. But I'm the new kid on the block.
I'm not sure that it is part of our
I didn't
purview.
think landscaping was.
The language is major landscaping.
Right.
I don't know that an herb garden.
I think it's
constitutes-
more about removal of existing.
Yeah,
Yeah, right.
yeah. I think that that's very easily approved.
Okay.
Yeah.
No,
No, I actually, I encourage herb garden. Would you like to move to? approve?
Yes, I move to approve.
Seconded by Stephen. All those in favor? Thanks.
Yeah.
Michael, thank you very much, Bill. Okay, on to consultations. Let's go to 137 North Chestnut Street. Nick Warner's here.
Herb garden.
Okay. Just- Keep this.
Not cut down any trees. Evening.
And to you, thank you for your patience. And thank you for following up what I really should say. This is
Yeah,
nice continuity.
I did give Camilla all of the samples of Hardy I could get my hands on, so you now have almost a complete set for all of your future reviews.
Oh, really? Ours
Those
to
are,
keep?
those are yours to keep.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's-
And I also, she's helping, not that we're back on an old subject, but she's gonna help me pick out a color tonight for the Mexican kitchen windows. So we were able to get the 2/1.
2/1.
We're gonna
Okay,
go
great.
with there, so.
Great.
And I brought some samples of the thin brick here. These are the colors they had, locally. There is a couple of redder and whiter options they're gonna order in for me, but we wanted to start off by asking, I think, an important question. With the change of local law number 2 of 2023, now requiring projects in the NBR zone to be formally sent to the Historic Preservation Design Review Board, do we need any type of a formal review, public hearing, or certificate of appropriateness from the board?
I think that's the implication.
Okay.
The good news is that we've already been.
We've been
I mean, This has
reviewing-
been a series
sure.
of
This is
reviews.
meeting 3, so yeah.
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, that is intended to formalize what pretty much was happening, but happening in an irregular way.
Sure.
Um,
An unofficial way. I guess.
Unofficial and, with various degrees of compliance and enthusiasm. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then I guess one thing we'll probably ask for then is the setting of a public hearing tonight for a future meeting, so
Sure.
that way we can check that box off, and we will, I guess, then submit a formal application. Because we haven't actually submitted an application, although we've submitted drawings and information about the project, but we'll fill out the prescribed form and get that to Val, so you have that.
I
So you
think
can
that'd be
conduct
great.
that review, because we don't want to have any, missteps in the process whereby someone could come back later and say, well, you didn't, do these pieces of the puzzle, so we're trying to check all of them off.
Can I ask a question about that? Is that how the village board described it? Because the language doesn't say approved by the village HPC. It says
It's
reviewed
reviewed
by.
by, yeah.
So it doesn't seem to provide us any regulatory approval, disapproval authority, but I'm just basing that on my experience with the way
Yeah.
lawyers write this stuff, but if they. Right, so they don't need to file an application with us.
If my understanding of that language is accurate,
I feel like we should get an opinion from either
I
the
think we
building
probably
inspector
should,
or from the
yeah.
village's attorney.
I've been working on the assumption that when we pointed out the flaws in that
Yeah.
language, the answer was, the expectation is that we approve or disapprove.
Okay.
But I think we need
ought to get
to,
an opinion.
yeah, and I think that's imminent. Can we work on the assumption that, it's probably easier to do that? Pretty much everything in our application piggybacks on what you're providing to the planning board.
Sure. I mean, we have no issue with that. And I think while there's some expense to us to have to go through the mailing of a public hearing, again, I'd rather kind of start that ball into motion, and maybe in the meantime, we'll find out that there's not a formal official review or a formal determination.
Yeah.
And if you do, then let us know. But if not, then we'll have a public hearing and we'll go through that process. So that way we don't find out later when someone may want to object and say you didn't do these steps.
Right.
So I think that's,
So the law is the building inspector is sort of the final arbiter of how
right.
village code, right, so.
Yeah, Corey was,
Get an opinion from him and right, we can request an opinion and he'll provide it and then that'll be.
okay, sure. That'd be great. But in the meantime, if you want to set us for the May 8th, if you have
Yes.
open slots for that purpose, we'll be happy to come back and start that process. And we can make the copies, just tell us how many we need and I'll make the copies. You don't have to go to that trouble. We have to do the letters anyway, envelopes anyways, so.
Okay.
So with that, I did bring, as I said, the brick samples. There are maybe 15 or 18 siding colors. We haven't settled on a siding color because we know that's Camilla's bailiwick. She's good with picking those out. No, we don't blame you. Maybe you can give us a couple of options and we can. No.
Is it?
Yeah, you never know. So we can talk about those. And then we also just, if you wanted to do kind of a cursory look or discussion, if there was any further on the landscape or lighting plans, we kind of just touched on them last time. But again, these are all obviously part of the purview of the review. So we're happy to talk about them if you have questions or comments to offer.
I was not here at the last meeting. I don't know if you discussed some of this. I'd like to hear about the landscape.
Sure.
I can pull it up. I'll hand you this, Michael. That's the blown up site plan showing the landscape table and what is being proposed. And also this might be helpful just kind of have as a secondary look as the lighting plan that would kind of go along with that.
I assume lighting, I know what these look like, so.
Yeah, you're probably more
So-
used to these than most of us.
Yeah.
Got down lighting around the edges of the building, and then you have posts, some number of lamp posts in your parking area.
In the parking areas, all LED and all,
Those are what, like 16 foot or
I think at
14
max. I think.
maximum is a
and max, there's a
something like 12 or something.
should be a schedule here calling out the heights of those and everything as you obviously look at the table will show you the foot candles and where they go out. Nothing travels out off of the site itself, which is, obviously part of the requirements.
Heating areas are unlit.
Correct.
Except for, like it, Tilson area. Okay. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, the only thing when we were doing Zero Place, one of the nice things that happened sort of towards the end was we brought in a landscape architect who made some suggestions that they really appreciated, which was they had very little landscaping and walking areas for people getting from their cars to the building. And so they created this center aisle that's landscaped and also a place where cars can't go. I don't know if that's sort of what I was looking for. So you have sort of the traditional landscaping at the ends of your parking aisles. But these guys
Yes.
here,
In those center islands.
and if I'm here and I get out of my car, my only choice is to walk up the.
But this is also a walking path that goes back to the
Oh,
bridge.
okay, yeah. I mean, it's not like there's lots of, everyone's busy, but I'm just.
Just as an aside too, just for information, the Army Corps has approved our permit for the construction of the bridge.
Okay.
So, and we'll be working on the final details and plans for that. We haven't done the final drawings for those yet, but preliminarily, we have a rough sketch of those and they've been approved by the Army Corps for the work.
Michael, the parking situation you were describing would have grass verges or plantings?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember, I'm trying to visualize what they actually ended up doing. But yeah, I think the way they have their parking, they have I believe they have a center strip that's landscaped and which people can walk. I have to go look at it tomorrow morning to be sure. I just don't remember, but I know it was, they ended up getting it reconfigured on the suggestions of this landscape architect who we brought in for this. And they ended up with much more landscaping, so it was nice.
And you're obviously familiar with Justin Dates. I mean, he is a landscape architect and we could obviously, bring him in for a meeting.
He was the applicant's landscape architect
Okay.
for that as well, I'm pretty sure. So he may remember the details. I don't. So, yeah, I mean, you have a largely unplanted area at this point, so it's got kind of a blank slate.
Yeah. Right. And we're actually returning more of the impervious area to soil. So that's a good thing here.
Yeah, I mean, I think especially landscaping the seating areas will be, as much as you can do there.
There is, and there's also, we had talked with, there's a program with the DEC for additional tree plantings along the back here. And we're still exploring that. So there actually may be additional.
The bank stabilization program.
Yeah, so that's going to be taking place too as well. We just haven't kind of finalized the details on that yet.
Actually, that would also help on anybody who lives on the other side of the rail trail. We have heard from somebody who's on the other side of Zero Place for cars that are coming in and the lights.
The lights beaming through
over the rail trail through their back fields to their house. So anything, that you can do or get assistance with plannings.
Sure.
That would, I think, pay dividends down the road.
Okay. Yeah, we do have that. We do have that row here where the parking specifically is to kind of buffer that as well, because that will the main entrance. But you'll still have some, you'll have a little flash here. You'll have that, those open areas for sure.
Yeah, no, I mean, some of it is.
And there is some topography here, so some of this will be shielded.
I know Zero Place stuff was planted specifically to try to prevent what you're talking about, but the trees just haven't had a chance to do that.
But it's good to have, I mean, that example can inform the next stage of your landscaping plan. And I think Stephen's right that, the more goodwill you
definitely
can get at the beginning from your neighbors across the rail trail.
The bank stabilization is really good, actually. That was good to know. We should tell the people who own the car wash. Perhaps they could get involved in that program.
Participate in that as well.
I know there's a lot of headlights there too.
Yeah.
And you're working with the middle school too, right?
Yeah, as an aside, my son is in the middle school. He's in Climate Club and they just got a grant for a pollinator garden that's going to go in there. And then I found out that the rail trail had that initiative through that.
So hopefully by the time my daughter's in middle school, she'll be planning a pollinator garden there to kind of encourage that, because I just think it'd be a great idea. I think most of these plants are pollinator types, not all of them, but I know they're not invasive.
Yeah, the DC usually, that's a program where they provide the trees and you can see the effects of that down by the Gardens of Nutrition. Those were planted about 15 years ago.
Right.
And they were just little saplings, and now
things,
they're
right?
quite substantial, and it's a variety of trees that are designed to stabilize the bank and also, as you say, be, if not native, at least not invasive. Yeah, it's a good program.
Good.
So, good, well, thank you, I
This is
appreciate that.
great. One of the loose ends I remember from the last meeting is a discussion about what to do about the windows.
Yes, and we did reach out to AJ Capola, the architect. He's working on getting us let me think of the best way to put it. He didn't have any photos of existing work depicting. Depicting here where the thin brick surround is kind of stacked and how that plays out. But he was going to work on providing us a little bit better of a detail. You know, his explanation and as we kind of discussed was that's going to all be at the same profile. So, you know, obviously the concerns I think of the board were it's not going to give you the look necessarily that you intend to have or really want there. And I think what we had talked about was the possibility of eliminating the up and down sides and just continuing the brick course.
That was kind of I think we all felt like that might be.
Yeah, and that probably will end up being the case at the end of the day, but he was going, again, just like I said, he was gonna see if he could get us something a little bit more detailed. And hopefully we should have that for you for the next meeting. When I last spoke with him, he was working on that, but there are a couple of other options that, you know, we're kind of looking at. So we'll probably bring you maybe 2 or 3 options. And then we hopefully can settle on one as a final, you know, decision for that.
Something that would really help me, and you can ask him to try to do is, I'd like to see that on the profile. You know, the thing that we talked about was this full bed, just to get something off the surface.
Sure.
As Camilla said, and I think we all said, you know, that's something that we didn't quite get right or wasn't quite right on Zero Place.
Right.
Too much uniformity there. So if he can give a detail that shows how much protrusion or how proud that course is coming on.
Okay.
That would help.
Okay, yeah. I mean, that's one of the challenges with the thin brick material, because I think we only have a measurement on the back of that one. That one doesn't have. If you have one, that would be great.
The issue is to try to provide some depth.
Some depth to it, yes.
Isn't some of that in the construction of the building though? Like if you set the windows deeper, or am I?
It's the still itself, it's applied. So I think it's gonna project past this. But it's not gonna be the full depth of like, as if it was done 100 years ago, you know, like with full brick. And
do we have options, other sill options?
Probably. I think that one it's a different material. It looks more like stone or like.
It would be like a field stone or just a.
Yeah, that's
not on the sill.
Not a, yeah, only on the sill.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
They actually make them so you can do I've seen one, I think the building, I'm trying to think which building in Kingston it was that I saw. It might have been today. The new building on Cedar and Broadway, the Rupco building where the bowling alley was, They actually did a thin brick material, and they have that stone on the top and bottom, and then the brick course runs straight in on the sides, but it breaks it up.
And they alternate, you have half brick, full brick coming up to the edge of the window.
Coming up to the edge of the window, you
Yeah.
have typical
Yeah.
course of brick.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me see if I have a photo of it on my phone.
So you get depth on the top and bottom, but not on the side.
Not on the sides.
I mean, you get it because, like you said, there's the windows set in and
Set in.
there's a corner.
Yeah,
But
You
you're
get
not
the
gonna-
slight return is what you would get.
yeah, because, I mean, right, which is better, right, because the way the windows are on your place, they just, they actually
Yeah,
protrude
yeah,
out.
A little piece or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a detail that's just.
Yeah, so, okay, yeah, right, that energy square, or whatever it is.
Yes. If you want to pull that up on the Energy Square building is one.
That's
Right,
what it's
the one you're
called.
talking about.
Yeah. If I can find a decent quality photo. Yes.
Well, you're nothing like a research librarian.
Yeah.
Finds things
Yes.
faster than anybody.
Yeah, right. Yeah, they did some interesting things with that. I think.
Well, but I mean, these are exactly the sorts of things we can explore next
Sure.
month. So, that's where I think we can be helpful.
And if you happen to think of something or see something in the meantime, please, send us an email or
Yeah.
circulate something to us, and we'll do the same as AJ comes up with suggestions. And, we'll bring it back to you at the next meeting to kind of, put that out there as options
Yeah.
and solutions.
I already made a note, our missing member who's ill, might well have some product information.
Yes, I know he was very
Yeah. he's-
involved in
he's-
that
This is
conversation.
his daily work, so he may have something. Does this product, come with an L-shaped return option? Do they give you anything that might solve that question Michael was?
This, I believe this does. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get the larger deck samples for us, and some more colors for the next meeting. But I'm pretty positive they have a full line. These were just the samples that they had in stock, because I asked them to get more and he didn't get more for me. But I'll get that, so we have it.
That'd be great. Typically they have. that.
Yeah, they have, and there's color, lighter brick, different colors.
I think we're in the right neighborhood. though.
Yeah, I think we wanted to kind of stay with that, traditional brick, especially with what's across the street with the Village
Exactly,
Arms.
that's a pretty substantial.
Yeah.
Brick face.
Brick face, right?
Yeah.
Brick everywhere.
Great.
And then obviously we'll defer to Camilla's suggestion on a nice color for the building and windows. All right, great. There's some psychedelic ones in there, I think, but, good. Anything else you want us to prepare in advance of the next meeting or have ready for the next meeting, other than, obviously that detail and some additional samples on brick?
I think that Stephen's suggestion to look really hard at that particular aspect of the landscaping, just to think about, that sort of headlight effect.
Okay.
Just because it has now concretely come up with one of the neighbors on Huguenot Street.
Okay.
So maybe we, address that or at least think that through.
we will definitely bring that up to Justin Dates, and we'll get him to opine on that, especially in kind of just the void areas where we still have.
Yeah.
room. I think where we had the call out for the ID, those are going to be 24 to 30 inches already. So I think this kind of section is covered, but here, maybe we could do a little bit more, as long as it doesn't interfere with anything, but we'll definitely take a look and just look at the topography there as well.
Thanks. Yeah, no, I think that's good.
I don't know, I don't know. Because if you're gonna plant a living buffer, there is this issue of time. And one of the things we didn't talk about when we were looking at Zero Places application, but maybe it's something to consider, is doing the plantings that you're talking about, but perhaps putting a fence of some sort up for, a period of 5 to 10 years while they're growing. If in fact this is an issue, I mean, this is actually probably something that's pretty testable.
Yeah.
We've got your lot, you can bring cars out there and put
Sure.
your headlights
Yeah.
on and have somebody on the, with permission of the neighbors on the other side, just, basically.
Yeah, we can see what's back there too.
Yeah, take some pictures and, this is a good time of year because it's still mostly leaf off, but.
Sure.
So.
Okay.
Something to think about.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Nick, that sounds great. We will get you on calendar for April 8th.
May.
Oh, sorry,
May 10th.
Let's rewind the clock.
May 8th, I think. April 10th today.
Right.
May 8th. Val will know because she often has to correct me and so email out the wrong thing. And I'm going to try to get immediate clarity on this question of whether certificate of appropriateness or not. I kind of think that that's the path of least resistance.
Okay.
If it turns out that we're only consultory, then you just would skip the notification step.
Sure.
So I
Okay.
think just getting it into an application.
Yeah,
won't hurt anything.
that's completely fine. Like I said, we would just rather start it and do it right and get it done. Then that way find out, when we're at the eve of a planning board approval, oh, you have to go back and do this now.
Yeah,
So,
and that's what we're trying to straighten out is just the ad hoc way that it sometimes worked and,
Right.
to everybody's frustration.
Sure.
Because there isn't there is no master plan as to when we meet versus planning board meetings.
Well, and this is kind of the first, us and the folks at Agway, right, are the first real official projects under the new
Correct.
NBR guidelines.
Yep.
So yeah, we understand that completely. So, great. So do you have to vote to have a hearing or is it just? a standalone?
Right, don't think we do.
Okay, cool.
We'll see you in a month.
Great.
Thank
See
you very
then.
much,
In
as
the
always.
meantime, we'll
Thank you for giving Camilla
get
this.
this more in.
Sounds great.
Great.
Thanks. And don't forget the drawings.
Those are not ours. Those are here. Yep.
Oh, okay.
Those are your
They've been
next.
sitting there.
Your next.
Thank you very much,
You got
gentlemen.
it.
Nice to meet you.
We're here for.
Everybody, welcome.
Nowhere.
It's gonna be the new password, right? Food Garden. Thank you for your patience. This has been an epic meeting with all kinds of technical. No, it really isn't, but.
Is it all right if I cover that?
Yeah, please.
All right.
Actually,
Don't mind moving
we'll
it.
just move it.
Yeah. Brief introduction. My name is Jason Anderson, architect for the applicant. The applicant's actually Max Kimlin and Eric Baxter, the developers. The architect here with Ken Casamento, our civil engineers, and our landscape architects as well. So I'll give you a real brief overview and then maybe let Ken describe the property a bit. So what we're looking at is a 68-unit apartment building. So it's 3 stories is what we're proposing. And of course, along North Chestnut is all commercial on the first floor, 2 stories of apartments above. The center core area has some amenity space as well as some apartments. And then the rear is 3 stories of apartments. So that's the simple overview. We'll be able to take a look at the elevations and such, but perhaps if Ken you give us an overview, we'll set it up.
Quick overview of the, obviously, we're keeping the existing entrance that is here that is currently shared with the car wash that's next door.
Right.
Reworking some agreements that don't exist for the lot that's there with the planning board. There are
So
no,
that there's no easement.
there's no cross easements, there's nothing.
Okay, it's just,
So we're reworking that with the DOT and everything there, along there. We did have some preliminary meeting with the planning board as well, and we're putting some parking along 32. One of the benefits of this will hopefully, one of the traffic calming measures for the roads are bringing it smaller. You know what I mean? It doesn't make it feel like a big giant highway. You know what I mean? As down by Zero Place, when we did the park and ride there, because I was involved with that with Mike Rizza, when we brought the road in, it kind of slowed everyone down before they took off after that then, because it opened up again. So the idea here is again, to start to bring this down in the beginning, as you throttle in, so the 40-mile-an-hour change is just passed right in this area here. So the Agway building sits in the back. The code really wants our building up front. We've pushed the building as far front as we can. We do have a second access in because we're required to have a fire apparatus access around the whole building. So there is a 2-way circulation around the whole site. Obviously, as we're in front of the DOT, that may tweak just a little bit on that end. But this is really a back of house commercial type parking set. The dumpster and garage and everything is inside. We're kind of actually reworking this based off of some planning board comments to avoid having the handicap. There's enough space in here so that the dumpsters can be wheeled out without blocking any of the ADA pathways in here as well. Around back, mainly for the residential parking, this area here and over here would likely be for the transient, more commercial parking in between the two. We do meet the parking requirements for the site in its whole. We do have a spot here that there's a 30-foot requirement to be away from the edge of the stream. We have to just tweak this side in a little bit, which plays with a little bit of landscaping in here. And in this spot in here. So we're going to shift this building up just to keep out of the 30-foot buffer in that corner. But what that
and is that 30, that's just literally that little corner
right in
there.
this corner right here.
Okay.
We're outside of the floodplain. We're outside of the stream buffer. You can see right here, there's a stream buffer line right here. We're outside of it. We are proposing to make a bridge type connection to the rail trail. Exactly how that is yet, we're working with them to come up with this. As many of you may or may not know, this drops way down and then drops way back up. So we're going to find a happy medium in here where that makes sense to go across and set a bridge across. But what it does do, and I heard you talk about it in the other applicant, which isn't shown here, but is part of our plan, is we're going to have now some areas below by that shift where we can get some flats to plant more trees down along that side. It was difficult to plant into that area because of the nature of the slope. To get some substantial type trees in there. What we did do is the trees along the front are linden. Forgive me, I am not the landscape architect, but one of my partners is. Are green spire lindens, very hardy tree intended along the salt side. We know that based on past experience, the DOT, when they plow this, pretty much destroy anything in their way. So these are pretty tolerant to that. Some cherry trees in between in the wider areas to bring some color to the front. This area in here, we have it's a London plane tree. It's a hardy, very unique bark type that like shed.
Shedding, yeah.
Yep. And the idea is to create more of a landscape grove, shady area for the residents to be outside and be around. So that's what this here. We end up with honey locust in the middle, flagged by some red maples for color on the sides, and then 2 large stand oaks in the back to further off into the distance as you go through, again, with colors to play with that. And I'm not getting into all the little plantings in between, but that's the majority. In here, in this section of courtyard, we went with a birch, which is, it's called the Parkland birch. And I do have a full landscape plan over here too, with all the call outs, but it's easier to kind of see on the color. A Parkland birch, which is, tends to be a narrower, tall tree. Again, with some yellowish type color for leaves. So that's what we went with over in here. And then I go blank on what I remember what those were. So CFR.
Pink flowering dog.
The dogwoods, the dogwoods are over in here. And the one thing that's on this plan that isn't in here is when we switch these out, we had arborvitae originally in here, and then we switched them to the birch.
Okay.
Because we preferred that over the arborvitae in that area. We really didn't see any need at that time when we were going through it to go heavily into a coniferous type planting. There wasn't any specific buffer right there that we thought needed to be an all year long buffer, and tried to keep it more consistent with what is out there for the native material in that area. So that's the real quick version. What we did do with landscape lighting is, I didn't bring the lighting plan, but we do have lights throughout the parking lot. They're about 18 feet tall, and they're all downlighted, dark sky compliant lights.
Okay.
Majority of our lighting is done through building lighting around the outside to minimize poles. We do have a few in areas that are key along walks. But we do have, and again, for the parking lot, we created this center spine through the parking lot for both people coming in and then access to the rail in the future.
You need 18-foot standards? Seems a little high. but-
Well, the lower we go, the more we
Right, that's true.
to
right.
meet the distance. So we were trying to find that happy medium.
Right, because you just want them down that center.
Correct. We were trying to avoid having
Yeah,
poles everywhere.
I mean, given where they are, it's, you're like not really near anything there, so.
Right. And we thought that once the trees start to come in and stuff like that, they'll kind of hide into the tree.
Yeah,
These are the only poles right here.
Right.
these little dots.
yeah.
Right.
And then the rest is all being accomplished by
Building on the lighting.
Right.
I do wonder, following Michael's point, I wonder if the three on this side of the building could be lower.
Are those also proposed to be 18?
These are as well, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, that seems,
That would be a question you might want to take.
Well, so the issue here is then you have the line, so the lower we go. Right.
if you go to 16, where does it drop off?
I'd have to look. I'd have to
Yeah.
play with the photometrics to see how far out, if we can provide enough across here, because what doesn't happen here now on this light, there's no lighting in this here. So what we're trying to do is get some lighting across to make that whole intersection.
Yeah,
The next size down is 15. So something
15.
we can look at.
Right.
yeah,
But if you look, if I can zoom in, you're still only at 0.7, 0.5 out in the aisle. You're not even at a full foot candle. Do you know what I mean? So that gets,
I guess it depends on what the purpose of the lighting is. I mean, because what I find when I walk by Zero Place, if it's dark, the lighting that on the plans, on the rail trail say basically zero, there's still, there is lighting there
Yeah.
coming from the parking lot.
right.
So it's sort of, I mean, it depends, I guess the question is, what do you need to meet your, whatever the need
The
is?
safety requirements.
Yeah,
Yeah, we could look at it a little further. Once you get down below 0.5, it starts to get dark.
yeah,
Do you know
yeah.
what I mean?
No, I get that.
But the benefit of that is that's in the travel lane, not necessarily the walking spot.
Right.
So that's where I wouldn't want it darker than 1 foot candle.
Okay.
But we can look at that around the other to dropping that in those areas.
Would a series of, this is sidewalk, I take it?
Yes, it is.
Would a series of lighted posts
Bollards are a difficult maintenance problem.
because of the snow plowing?
Well, we've found that I do a lot of work at Vassar campus, and they've removed every bollard because between the snow plowing, the abuse they take as someone walks by, they'll bang them, depending on what ends up for people, you know what I mean, tenants in the space. It ends up becoming that of a, and they don't, because they're small, they're LEDs, they get one shot and then they go off, and now you have nothing for lights. And the other thing we found, which we just had this with Dutchess County Planning, we're going through, is to get the lighting that is safe out beyond the walk, you get a lot of hot spots. So you end up with, although LEDs now are downlit, as you can see, they're very bright right under in order to get far apart. And when you have a pole that we're talking 18 feet and we're getting spread at 0.5, when I bring that down to 4 feet, I'm only getting 4 feet to 5 feet around of light. To get it to go 8 feet, now I either have to put way more lights, and you get these dots across the whole view shed, where I much prefer it up higher and hidden and kind of drop lighted. And remember, these all have these trees in here, so the intent of it being up into the trees and down, so to speak.
They work well in pathway lighting versus
Right.
for the parking area.
Yeah.
Other stuff.
So that's this side of it.
Yeah, so that's the overview of the site. So that is our package, but I will.
Yeah, this is all the landscaping and copies of the plans that Jason has as well tonight.
What we have here are the renderings. That I could share.
I'll play Vanna.
Okay. This is day 901. So this is looking at, from the front, let's say, looking slightly north. And then this is the same now, looking slightly south. So we're on North Chestnut. Yep, we've got the right one up. So what we've got here, just to sort of explain it again, this front facade, this first floor, that's all the retail spaces that go along there. And then you can see this is the 2 stories of residential that's up above. This is the parking area that's sort of in front. We've got our pedestrian access ways. So the intent here was really to try to bring the scale of the building down as you're along North Chestnut, but also for it to feel like a place that you'd want to walk into and actually access these stores. So that's essentially what you see here. So we've got, this is all essentially woodwork in this area. We've got a cornice here. We've got some signage that would be there for each of the storefronts. Broke that up with some brick at the corners. And so that's what you're seeing here. That's full brick that we've got. And then wherever we have the full brick, we've introduced some awnings, some standing seam metal awnings at that location. So try to sort of create this as our center, central piece for those storefronts. And then this wraps the corner as well for that. The other thing then above, what we look to do, and this design sort of carries around the entire building. What we look to do was essentially use hardy plank everywhere else. So what you see here is our horizontal. That's the hardy plank with the wood grain, which we have some samples of. Then we've got the board and batten, which wraps wherever we've got this the wood appearance. That is the smooth hardy plank. And then here we've got with these pilasters, and then even all of these panels that are surrounding the windows that are creating that 2-story appearance. That's all just the smoother hardy plank at that location as well. When it comes to the cornice, we're showing some brackets at the that central area, and wherever we've projected it up, which I'll show you around the building, every central location, we've projected that up on all 4 sides. We're introducing that as well, and then simplifying the cornice as it wraps around, but still maintaining the same profile. So that's sort of the overview. The intent was to not make it appear monotonous, but instead try to break the building up in that with that approach. So give you a.
You need a height, or will you be seeking a height variance?
No. So we reviewed that with Corey, and the way the zoning reads is that the height is to the roof structure. So that was the first thing we did. We met with him. So our roof is at 35 feet. However, the parapet is this parapet's 4.5 feet taller than that. This one's 3.5 feet taller. However, in the zoning, it indicates that that is in addition to the building height.
Okay.
So we're actually, it'd be nice if it had 2.5 more feet. But it does produce a little bit lower ceiling, similar to what you have here in the commercial space, but this is still, we feel acceptable because what we did is decided to break these into smaller commercial spaces, and that's going to feel proportionate to the space that's there. So we don't feel we have a problem. We did have to change our design of the building structure as well to try to accommodate that.
They're not 11-foot first floor.
So the first,
So they're more like 9.
I got it.
So
I know you have a
floor to floor, so we're gonna be 11 to the bottom of our structure.
Oh, okay.
But we still have to get HVAC.
Yeah, right.
Everything else.
Yeah,
So that's where
Sure.
you really want a little bit more height.
Yeah. And you have rooftop mechanicals?
So we'll have rooftop mechanicals for the commercial space,
Right.
but then we're going to use heat pumps throughout all the apartments.
Okay.
So they are internal to the apartment and end up having 6-inch to 6-inch vents, and that's all that is required. They're called EFOCA units, if you look them up, EPHOCA, and they're heat pumps, which are, great.
Highly efficient.
Yeah, very efficient. So, but we do have chases that go down from the roof, but all of those are hidden. As I said, this is a 4'6" parapet in that location. So just to give you a brief overview, I do have samples, but this gives you a look at the colors that we're proposing. So this is a historic gray, and it's called gray shower, but if you look it up, that's a historic gray. The shadow gray is complementary to that. So that's what we're proposing on the board and batten and the smooth hardy plank. There's the samples, the textured hardy plank that's here. We've had great success with a modeled tan. This is the warm tan, but it's a modeled appearance that has, so I think that top one. So this, yeah, that gives you well, this is not the color. So we're selecting custom colors just so that we can get the appearance that we're hopeful for, but you can see the texture that would be on the wood, the wood that's there. In addition to that, we're proposing black windows. So they would be the Anderson single hung for all of the residential. Down below, we would use the Conair black anodized. So we'd have the black down below, which is what you see there. The other thing is something we've been really pushing is the solar band 70. So it's a low reflectance glass. To me, that's even more important than a lot of people give credit to. But so you're not going to get nearly as much reflectance as you'd have on a lower quality glass at the street first floor level. We're looking for an antique shale gray antique brick in running bond. So that's again, wherever you see the wood, that's sort of wraps that corner down below. So that gives you that appearance there. And so that's
Up to what height were you intending the running board?
What?
The brickwork.
Oh, the brick. So it comes right up to here.
So 10 feet, a little bit more.
Okay. So yeah, here. Okay. So here's a view from the back.
Okay.
Maybe you can see a little better. So this gives you an idea up to that point, and then there's the.
Got it.
And so again, yeah, this is the back. So we're doing. It doesn't matter from what view you're looking. Sort of that same design, perhaps.
Well, I know too.
All four.
You're very.
Got it. Okay.
Yep, that one.
So, so in the package, you'll see there's a few other things. We included all the exterior elevations, site sections that we cut through the property. We did we looked at VP1. We also tried to do a photo simulation.
Thank you. That's
the color didn't, because of what's on the other, didn't really show up. It's a little bluer there, but just to give you a visual representation, looking south, right? And in the relationship, to surrounding buildings. That's the original image here. And this gives you sort of a cross section through from this location to sort of understand the topography and the building height as it stands there as well.
Very good.
We also did a site section, sorry.
No.
Just because I thought it would be interesting to sort of understand. Yeah, VP2. So this is from, this is from Bonacure. Then let's look at one. It's not the one okay, so VP3. So we wanted to see from Huguenot, like what's the distance? How does all of that relate? So here's the site. Here's our property line. That's the grade that we were looking at there. And then this, of course, is the rail trail. Here is Huguenot Street. Essentially, it's to our building 825 feet. And then our property line, we'd have to subtract roughly another 175, right? So
Okay.
you're 670 or 650 feet to our property line. Right. Roughly. But that gives you, again, we were looking, this applicant before us was just south of us. There's a car wash and then.
They get a little, it gets a little narrower as you come down, that's all.
Right.
Similar.
That's, to me, a very helpful image. It starts to, really.
Well, yeah,
show
you
what-
start to see it.
Yeah, yeah. I wondered on that photorealistic rendering, how hard would it be to, how hard would it be to work up a slightly zoomed version of the lower one? In other words, same image, but just go in a little tighter.
So these are the same images.
No, I'm sorry,
Oh,
I
yeah.
meant a different thing. If you took that lower image, went in tighter,
If you were closer to.
Made it smaller.
So we can-
You're standing like by the mailbox.
something like that, yeah,
So to speak.
to sort of bring the building a little closer.
We can do that. The only way to do these accurately is we have to take static images. Otherwise, I can falsify this, like I can zoom in.
Sure.
Look, so I have to get there and take just the image. So I'll see if because I did send guys down to take a bunch. So let me see what we have. that's
Okay,
closer.
I'm actually not trying to make more work. I think even just the zoomed in
But you can see
version of
it.
that, just to see a little bit more of the building and maybe a little less of.
So we could do that, but just so you know, it'll
It'll be a
alters
little
the
distorted.
view
Yeah.
slightly.
Okay,
So what's the distance from the point of view to the building there? What, about a couple hundred feet?
609 feet.
609 feet.
Oh, okay, quite a bit.
Yeah,
So you're basically at.
just before you
Sunset
come,
Bridge.
correct, just
That's
after
what we
you
were
turn.
trying
down
to
the-
do, like
correct.
that.
This is the guardrail
Yeah.
that would turn back around onto Sunset Ridge.
Because as you get closer, it's on other renderings, although they don't show later.
Nope. Not that far. Nope.
That's all right.
Yeah. Yeah. For this one. Honestly, if we were a step back, if I had a shot looking that way, then you would see sort of that. That view.
Is that supposed to be, this was a little confusing.
Okay, yeah, so
This grassy area in front of us.
yeah,
isn't-
that's
not real.
that's
not real.
a form an edge to the rendering.
Because that's what I-
That would be the.
That's
the,
actually-
East side of North
Correct.
Chestnut,
Right.
which
Yeah.
are trees,
Yeah,
essentially.
correct.
yeah.
You're
However,
almost standing in the dance studio,
right,
so to
right.
speak, where
Yeah,
we
that's
are,
to get us
with
enough
nothing in front of you.
to up view, so you're not looking
right.
you know,
Sure.
directly up. However, these are the actual trees, of course, showing in their flowering state, but the ones that we were discussing. So we actually selected the the correct species, so you can see how that plays with.
Can I ask two questions about the residential windows?
Yes.
So how do they open?
So they're like double hungs, but
Yeah.
they're a single hung, so they'll
Okay.
just open.
So they just open from the bottom up. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
And then what's the height of these windows?
That's a great question. I don't know if I can answer it.
They look quite substantial.
Yeah, they are. They're. You have it on here. No less, these are all to scale, so. It will be no less than,
Because you have 11 foot floor to floor.
but I,
Not the first floor windows.
right, but I did bring them.
Oh, you're saying, right. Yeah,
Right.
each floor is 11.
Correct.
I did bring them within 2 foot. They're a minimum of 5'6", but they may be slightly larger.
It's nice.
Yeah, no, they're
quite big.
They're meant to.
Yeah, and then
to be
each one is a
proportional
double.
in
width.
the space.
Yeah, no, they look really good.
And-
That's why I was trying to match them up against the zero placements, which are relatively small.
Yeah.
These seem much more
Well,
substantial, don't they?
Yeah.
This is also to get the right proportion of the window. They really do have to be narrower and taller.
Yeah.
And that's the reason we went with the doubles in most cases, because otherwise they wouldn't feel right. So generally what happens, at least in our experience, is you have to go wide enough for it to feel good in the room,
Mhm.
but then your proportions are messed up because, you know,
Right.
that's not traditionally how it
Right.
worked. So, so that's why we went that direction.
Yeah, no.
And also we
Like it.
tried to, the reason for combining, if you were to look, really trying to pull these together here. This is looking at the rear of the building. So here's the front. Was also to try to then give that vertical appearance and rhythm around the building, which I think complements the window proportions.
It is remarkable what effect that cornice has, of just sending your eye up
Well, that's
to me.
That's
No,
the-
it's a nice move.
the intent. And it also helps to separate what is a more traditional storefront appearance to them from what the residential component would be.
Approximately, what's the profile on the outer cornice?
So I can get you a section on that. So it comes off about 6 inches.
Okay, good.
Is what that projects. But this is going to project 6 inches from this location, and this is, I think, about 3.5. So if you look back at the rendering,
So something like 6 plus another 6 and 3.5 tall.
well, that's so a way to really, these,
Oh, considerably more.
right?
Yeah.
So this profile is the same as that, but we still have to get that off the building. This cornice or the entablature portion, I guess you call it, where the brackets are, in order to be able to create that. We haven't worked through the construction details yet, but that's the.
Do you have a bracket manufacturer in mind?
We do. So it's either either AZAC or FIPON for that.
Okay. Good.
That's when we do work. We're doing a couple of projects, 5 and 6 stories up in Hudson right now, and they seem to have the best profiles that you can select, and it's no maintenance.
Yeah. It looks,
Otherwise, it looks
you
bad
know,
in a few years.
yeah.
And that's the reason for selecting the highly fine thing.
Right. For projects that are, I mean, this is not in the historic district. In the historic district, we've been urging people not to use the Hardy with profile, just because it's sort of inauthentic
Right.
to clapboard. But I'm thinking that maybe on a project like this, we do want that variety. I don't know. What was your thinking on?
It looks very good. have it on my house. I've had it for 20 years and it looks like it did when I put it up. No one believes that it's not cedar unless they get up to it and start to, touch it. They're like, oh wait, this isn't wood. So in our experience and my own personal experience, I think it works well. And in this case in particular, yeah, that's what's on. That material is above 13 feet, right? So it's from 13 feet up. It's not at grade, and below it is real brick.
Once you don't have that up close feel to it.
Right. So what it really, I'm thinking that what it does is provide texture that kind of mitigates.
That's the thing, and that was the design intent here, was that you struggle, or I struggle in these buildings because reality is internally it is monotonous, right? There are multiple 2-bedroom apartments and 1-bedroom apartments, and the efficiency is in that repetition. Now on the exterior facade, it can all be one material, one facade, but you have trouble providing a building that has some interest and is articulated in a way that is representative of certain towns or villages. So utilizing the hardy board and other materials, brick and other, and the different variations that they offer allows you to create that, when in reality on the inside, those are all the same apartments in those spaces. At least that's our approach.
Thankfully, we only concern ourselves with the outside. So the rest is on you all.
Yeah. I'm with you, only on the outside. As I say, I play outside the box. Jason gets to play in the box and around the box.
That's right, yeah. So where are we with the planning board?
So they've circulated, they've set a
Public hearing.
public hearing.
Okay.
So that's coming up.
When is your public hearing?
The 18th. Correct.
Yeah, I think so.
That's the next meeting, it's 18th, and then the 24th is the submission for the next meeting. So we will be at the May meeting still, you know what I mean? But we are on for public hearing on the 18th.
Okay, very
Have
good.
they typed this unlisted?
Yes.
Yes, I think that was it, yep,
And that's, they haven't made a decision on that.
correct.
Okay.
But we circulated for lead agency at the last meeting.
So it just went to county.
Yes.
Okay.
I think so. We're under the same question after hearing it that previously.
Right,
Yeah.
Right.
yep. I will try, I've been working on the assumption that we are empowered to ask for certificate of appropriateness, do the notification, the whole schmear. It probably comes to the same thing. I mean, the planning board, whatever we sent forward in the form of a recommendation, I think would probably be heeded.
Right. Yeah, it sounded that way when they were recommending.
And just like them, we want to make sure that, we cohesively move through so we don't get to some place and go, oh no, we have to go backwards.
Right.
And or open anyone up for potential misstep after the fact. either.
Right.
Yeah.
So May 8th is a comfortable time for you to come back to us.
Yeah, I mean, for us, it is.
Should we schedule public hearing on the
I think
assumption?
I would
that-
like to, because then that puts us at the right spot at the planning board afterwards, after that meeting.
Okay,
A lot of the same people. And a lot of the same neighbors.
Yeah.
Right.
Are there any comments that?
Could you go back to the first chart?
yeah, so I think the most helpful thing we
The
can
very
do
first
is.
one?
Of the rendering or the
Yeah.
site plan?
The site plan.
Nope, just tried to, we had a lot of boards thrown at
Yeah.
you. so.
Just one observation that I had, you described you were asked to put some parking here. Similarly, Zero Place goes along Mulberry Street and pulls out, and I actually traverse that frequently. Vehicles that are parked here occasionally without a tree makes it very difficult to see traffic heading southbound. Just as an alert, I don't know that there's anything you can do, but it is something that is a difficult thing to deal with in coming out of Mulberry Street.
So what
it's just-
we can look at is the sightline distances and the tree canopy. So we can play with the caliper of tree to bring the tree limbs up so that they're not in the lower view, because it's usually 42 inches is the height at which you measure your sightline distance, which would be the eye of the car.
Okay.
So it's a view if you're pulling out, looking.
Right. So
So you're talking about pulling out the vehicle rather
Pulling
than
out,
walking.
yes, pulling out in a vehicle, I mean, and there are not cars parked there always in front of Zero Place, but I mean, it's just at times I have myself, and then I've heard from other people that it's like, this is a difficult turn, even if you're heading south.
I'm also can vouch for that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, DOT approved the parking in front of Zero Place, but it is clearly reduced the visibility. You have to pull your nose out so that you're at least even with the parked cars to see the cars that are coming.
So it's less that tree and more.
It's
vehicles.
more the
Yes.
vehicles.
Yeah, I'm not complaining about the tree. I mean, that.
Yeah, no, I hear what
even
you're
though
saying.
that's not present at Zero Place, it's probably the vehicles. But I understand how many, additional, or, you don't want to lose much in the way of parking.
We actually can't count, we don't have that in our parking calcs either.
Right.
Are we satisfied all parking?
Yeah, so,
Oh.
I mean, DOT's doing that for traffic calming
Exactly,
reasons.
Right.
But we can talk to our traffic consultant too, and these can
Maybe
be
you just.
created as tapers on both ends, lose one
Yeah,
space, slide it, and
exactly.
still have the same
Or
feel.
motorcycle or bicycle parking or something.
Yeah,
I was wondering about
Difficulty
bicycle.
when you do that in here is that motorcycle parking in the special spot. Someone with small cars try to,
True.
it's like there used to be a whole caveat where you could do compact car parking.
Yeah, nobody.
What defines compact
Yeah,
car?
exactly.
There's no, you know what I mean? So yeah, if they show up in a smart car or Prius, or someone who's in a 4Runner who thinks it's compact, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So,
I would consider, I mean, it's not a public road there, so it's not quite the same as the situation that Stephen's talking about, but still for
no,
your,
but it's worth,
for your residents and
Yeah.
for,
it's worth talking through and making sure that we accommodate it with the site.
yeah, if you don't
distance
need
triangle.
that parking, they were they did, but if you
Right.
don't need that, then
Right.
Yeah.
you might
Okay.
find other ways to use that space.
Yep, we can look at that.
I mean, if they could do
Good
a
observations.
Yeah, I'd love to neck the whole road down, but
Yeah.
DOT's not gonna let us go there yet.
But Jason, this is a really interesting design for the building. I have to say, it really throws on me. It feels sort of simultaneous, kind of modern, maybe somewhat old. The only part I'm still not sure I love, but again, it's just me, is the board, the vertical board and batten. There's not a lot of it. But yeah, but I really like the contrasting tones. And this kind of gray gives it kind of a modern feel, almost urban.
Yeah.
That's the
But
intent was more the urban.
but then it has a lot of nods to sort of, a more rural space too. That's just sort of my non-professional take on it. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how others feel about the board and batten.
And that's this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So you can see
there's not a lot of it.
Yeah, so what we did is I went with the horizontal here.
Uh-huh.
And then if you go around the rest of the building, it's that horizontal, but as it wraps the wood, what I was coming up with was that it was difficult to have this horizontal and then have another
Yeah,
horizontal
yeah.
around it.
Right.
So
Yeah,
it
I
ended
think
up, it
that's just the way-
ended up just being a color variation, and
Right.
that's where I made that decision. I think the
You see it in this one.
yeah, I think the mixture of
Where you see it.
historical and why there's the contemporary has to do with the chorus. So that intentionally, perhaps.
Yeah, no, very much speaks to sort of a Main Street kind of.
Right, but tried to still, we had full dental work and all the rest of that, then we would make it more historical throughout, but it's more of that transitional to say, okay, here's a nod to that. But
Yeah. Well, I think, as a position, our role is not to replicate Main Street on North Chestnut, but to, as you say, kind of pay homage to what's south of here. This is a whole new architecture, and I think this is capturing it. I'm sort of with Michael. I'm not sure the board and batten works 100% for me, but I don't know if I have a better solution. What actually pops for me is I feel like I want sills on those windows. Something that just makes them look more like windows. I don't know what the solution is.
That's interesting, because I actually.
You like the cleaner?
Because they're black and they're really big, they feel more like factory windows to me, and I actually don't, I know what you're saying, but I actually don't mind. I like the way they look in this case, because there's a lot of relief in the frame around not the frame of the window, but the
paneling.
the paneling around it. And because they're really substantial, which is great.
It is great. I'm really happy to see that, and the tenants will be happy to have windows like that.
Yeah, so I know, I see what you mean, but
I'd be happy with.
Yeah, I wonder if, is the happy medium, I mean, not that I have any more voice than anyone, but might a happy medium be some profile that's the same color? So not changing it with like a, stone sill or a black sill, but just maybe something that stays in gray but gives some dimensions. We've talked about kind of the thing that got missed on Zero Place is just the flatness of that facade, just a big goof.
That's usually the flatness of whether it's windows or everything else is usually what ends up, detracting.
Yeah.
The one interesting thing is there is an option even on these heat pumps for us to put a linear vent along the bottom. And so essentially we would put the heat pump below the window, the unit, and then we could have a linear vent. It sits about 4 inches and it's black. And now the only thing is what I would do, it would only be under one, and then I would do a false one under the other. But that will give you an additional 4 inches of black aluminum, let's say, right? That would have like 4, it's a louver, so 4 vents. And that would create that.
So that would be on both
floors, correct?
Yeah, it would be on every, well, once I do it on one, I'd probably,
right.
Yeah.
Have to keep it.
Interesting.
I'm sort of interested in that, even if I'm not sure it even has to be black, just something that gives a little depth. Would that solve, what's your alternative for the heat pumps? How do they vent if not?
So generally we'll have small, so what I'll do is, depending on, I'll start to line them up. So let's say we would end up having, we'd have vents in different locations. So some are going to go through the roof, others may go through the side. Let me just think for a second. So the other option is 4x4 vents that we would see, which we're going to have for the dryers anyway, and the hoods over the Rangers.
Okay.
And those
And these are like little louvered.
Yeah, so they're just they just have louvers in them.
Yeah.
And bird screen behind it, but that's all it is.
It would be nice to see those. Is that a
I can,
hard thing
yeah,
to?
we can easily
Yeah,
show
because
that.
I think that might tip my thinking. Just
And regardless, we can thicken that sill up. I don't think changing the profile would be tough. Like I know the discussion previously is going with like a slip sill or something that's whether it's a precast or a swing or something, that really wouldn't fit the style here. So that and I don't think if we ordered an sill extension, all that's going to give you is like a half inch. Like you're not going to see anything.
Wouldn't bother.
So either way, I think we could do something.
That's your thing. Is there anything else anybody would suggest we might want to look at more closely next month?
Shane probably would have a few ideas.
I'm sure Shane will have a few ideas.
Would it be possible, being that they're not here, to get comments on the digital question so that we can start to try to incorporate potentially that, so that
Let's
we
do
don't.
that. No, so you're not blindsided.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Time, appreciate anything you can help keep us moving along.
Those prints are not as high quality as these, so I think you have them electronically.
You've
too.
got them electronically.
Okay,
I think that's how
that
we
usually is
will work.
the best way to look.
Yeah.
Nowadays, the print is, the electronic version is so much better than the print.
Yeah. Well, to summarize, I mean, I think we agree this is a high quality project and looks very good. And just, I think it's a pretty short list of things we'd like. I'm going by my, my own list. If we could get another shot of that photorealistic rendering just a little closer in, that would be nice. And question about what to do about sills.
Light poles.
Light poles,
Yep.
for sure, yeah. I don't think there were any real comments on the landscaping.
No, the view on the exit.
Yeah, the view shed. So you have
Yeah.
to modify,
Mhm.
pull that back.
It would also be nice to see where the venting would go. I mean, I realize that's a necessity, but it definitely has something to do with the
Yeah, it's
overall
always been-
design.
Wish we lived in South America, we didn't have any heating or cooling.
But we do. You had mentioned that you'd love to have 2.5 more feet. What was that about? What would
Because-
that get you?
On the first floor, you have 13 feet. We're able to do this with 13 feet. And then we're down to 11 feet at the bottom of our structure on the first floor. But now I need room for HVAC units and everything else that would be in that commercial space. So that starts to bring all of those heights down. So what that ends up doing, let's show it. Yeah, okay. So that's all part of this whole signage here, which works really well here. But you have to think I can't bring my windows or anything else up higher than, about 9 feet.
Right.
So if I'm going to try to keep all of this in what I feel at least is the right proportions, I've got a 7-foot door here. Now I'm at 9. That means my ceiling is probably right there in a commercial space. Now I'd like it to be higher than that, but I realize I've got other things going on. So that's where when you talk about, like when we read the zoning, you've got a 3-story building, 35 feet. You start to run those numbers, but you also have to have commercial in it. Well, you start to really struggle to do that. So I didn't show the interior layout, but the interior layout's based on having the way we positioned our walls was to get a reduced structure at each floor to try to squeeze that all down and make that work. But when you've got a commercial space, you can't have walls that are bearing, every so often, and you couldn't have a space like this. So that's the reason for it. It's a struggle. I know the previous applicant, they're going for a height variance for 2 feet, I think.
Yeah, it was
For that very reason.
Well, I asked that partly because we asked them directly, do you want a height variance?
Right.
And we wrote a memo supporting that because we felt like in the totality of things, we can
It's-
support that, so.
It's,
But the question is, you would have to go after the variance. We
well,
can't
that's right.
do
Our
anything
applicant
except
said no,
support.
so
Right.
that's why.
Okay, so that's where we are.
Yeah,
Okay.
and we figured out a way around it. We feel, we said, okay, you know what? They can also do exposed ductwork. They can do other things in there if they don't want their ceiling as low.
Right.
We figured out how to articulate it on the outside. Once we got the correct interpretation for the building, then we said, okay, we can have a building that has the right proportions and not have the top of our parapet at 35 feet, because then we couldn't do anything.
Right.
Right, so once we got all of that straightened out, we found a solution that sort of addresses all of that without the height variance. But if I were looking at zoning, I'd say, hey,
It's 35,
would-
maybe 37.5 would be better.
exactly, because particularly when you require this, if you didn't require that, well, then that's a little different, but.
I think you're making a good move, though, by keeping those units smaller. Maybe that matters less in a cozy
Yeah, well, that's,
kind of knitting shop or whatever it might end up
yeah,
being.
and we made this walkable so that they can be independent. It's not like one entity and then you're into the space, but it can be divided as needed.
I'm not seeing any benches. Is there any thought of benches?
So we do have some for the residents.
We didn't really talk about putting them out. Part of the proximity issue here that we'll end up having to work with is DOT right away. And in the way the DOT works is we can't put those type structures in the right of way very easily. So trying to keep landscaping in that side, there are some pockets, but as I said, this gets pushed in here now. So we end up with just these two pockets really.
Okay.
So we don't really have them there, and again, we could look at one of the ends, but then it goes into your question there, but maybe there's something to be set off a little bit more to the side. We can look at it. No,
Even if
it's a
we
good
are
valid
eliminating
question.
those two.
I'm sorry.
If we are eliminating two spaces.
Right, that's different, right?
Yeah,
Close to
potentially.
the road.
Just a thought.
No, that's a good.
Well, yeah, you might want to talk to if you end up having tenants that are food service,
Right.
they may well want outdoor space. So you might want to talk to to the.
I don't think we'd be able to get
this.
an outdoor space in the front. It might be out the back.
Yeah, that's fine, but you
Right.
just might want to think about that in the design, because
It's a good point.
certainly the one currently at Zero Place is very popular, and now the weather's when people are beginning to migrate outdoors.
Yeah.
Good point.
Right. Well, thank you very much.
Well,
And
thank
again,
you.
thanks for your patience. Quite a long wait that we didn't. Yeah, I think we just did set a record.
Yeah, that's right.
But we'll have you for public hearing May 8th. Valerie will send the material, which pretty much duplicates what you've done for the planning board.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can do that. You're on the right track.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Great.
Thanks very
Thank
much.
you very much.
Millbrook.
Millbrook,
Prep.
friend of mine teaches there.
Oh, I do all the engineering for this.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's what-
I would guess they're nice to work for.
Yeah.
It's a great avenue between Millbrook and Vassar.
Yeah.
Because,
Yeah.
and actually this client here is a really good client in the same way in that they want to do nice things. So it's nice to be able to sit and talk through things that it isn't like, well, that's $1.50 and this is 75 cents. I want to do that one. This is what is the right one for the project. Okay, let's see how we can make that work. And then once they exhaust that, then we can look at the potential alternatives. But they want to make it work. That's right. Because they're going to be there forever and they're going to own it.
That's nice.
So
We're
it is.
getting that vibe in this part of the community.
When the right people come in to develop work, Jason talks about the project he's working on in Hudson. Our firms are working on it together with the same developer. That's part of this project. And that's just it. They want to do the right project to make it look well fit because their name is going to be here for a long time. They've done a lot of projects on the other side of the river and they're expanding to do really nice projects outside of that area. So it's great.
It's nice to get people who go in with that attitude.
For us as well.
Sure.
We're struggling with this.
Well, somebody else put this in here for me. Somehow.
You want these back, Jason?
Well, those are copies if you want them, or
I think they could be useful. I think maybe Shane might want to look at it.
Oh, that's.
So I don't mind.
they are, as I said, not the highest quality for
That's
the
fine.
colors.
But between these and the digital,
It's the landscape, I guess.
Yeah, there's two
On the
copies.
site.
and we'll decide. Everybody, let's see how quickly we can blow through the essentials. Thank you both very much.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, see you in a month.
Yeah, nice to see you guys.
Yeah, good to see you.
See you again.
Okay, bye.
Have a good night.
Thanks. Let's see, anything that we can defer, I think we can defer. Steve, do you want to report quickly on Huguenot?
Sure. Go to 130 first. New owners, I've met the new owners, Mary and Dinah.
Mary and Diana.
Dina. Mary and Dina. Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I don't have last names with me. They are planning on some work inside. They are. I think they've got a bit of work to do based on the condition of the house as it was left by the previous owners. No surprise.
Have mercy on their souls.
Yes, so they seem to be working to get a sense of the house and have, I don't have any specifics on their ideas, but they seem willing to put in the work. And I think it will be an asset to the community.
Good. Good.
As for C-127 Huguenot Street, Christine and I are actually planning on a repaint of our house we had some consult with Camilla, who came and brought us a number of great shades. So we are very close to something that will be extremely similar to the green trim and white siding that the house currently has. And we would, in addition, paint the front door that same green and the small bench that sits out front that same green. So it would be a fairly dark, I think one of the closest ones that we were honing in on was Boreal green. And so that's where we are. It's pretty much going to be like for like.
Great. No need for any approval in that case.
Okay.
We wouldn't approve color anyway.
Okay. But it's going to be like for like. And so,
yeah.
And we're in the process of getting some bids, and we're still waiting for our previous HPC approved project to do the deck in the back. The contractor ran out of time in the winter, and so we're waiting for him to come back and finish that up as well.
Great.
And I don't have any update on the Jameson House or the church HVAC. I don't know, Val, do you have? Okay, haven't heard anything.
And what about at 140, the Keener planting?
I did, Christine and I went and met with Maria, and she had some ideas and had some advice that we looked at the lot from both their yard and from the rail trail. Between the house and the rail trail, it is pretty wet, so there's a good distance. And the upshot was we suggested that they get in touch with David Shepler as the owner of Zero Place, because they are facing what, some of the have been discussed car headlights are going from Zero Place across the trail through the woods to their house. And it is seasonal, but it is noticeable for them. And so we suggested that David Shepler may be amenable to planting some additional things on his side, where it would be much easier to water. Any substantial trees that they plant, they would have a very difficult time watering.
Just running a hose.
Running a hose that far. I mean, I don't have the exact distance, but it was a long haul, and there's seasonally a very wet section there. So they could do with some native evergreens, but I hope that this is a solution for them and that David Shepler is receptive and perhaps can accommodate their wishes.
Thank you. I'll just,
Why is 191 Huguenot on here? As a new owner, right?
One D.
yeah,
This is new owners.
It has new owners? The house sold? Oh,
But I don't know who yet they are.
wow. I didn't know that.
Remind me which is 191.
That's the Hasbrook house.
the Hasbrook House funds.
Wow, that's a big deal.
It's a big deal.
That's the first time it's not been in the family since it was built.
Yeah, that's right.
We'll take down the sign that says deeded through family.
Yeah.
Until now.
Until now. Add
Until
that.
20.
Until now. Addendum.
We try to reach out when there's a new owner on Huguenot
Yeah,
Street.
no,
just to
no, I was
introduce
just
ourselves.
surprised that, because I was talking to somebody who was interested in it, who said they were in conversation, but they didn't think that and the for sale sign had gone down and so forth, so,
Yeah.
okay,
So we're just
Interesting.
waiting to
find out who it
get names
is.
and likewise with 130, when we find out last names, we'll reach out. Did you have a sense that they knew that there were restrictions on
I
it?
told them I had the opportunity and I said, I happen to be a member of the Historic Preservation Design Review and that we stand ready to assist them with anything that they would like to do externally. I don't think they're interested in doing much externally. They're, had some changes internally, which I said are not our purview. And so they are aware of our existence and so and are aware of our willingness to help out with any of their questions or ideas.
Good, so it won't come as a surprise when the letter comes.
No.
Good. The only thing I have to add on that is 150 Huguenot Street. That was that emergency garage door replacement. I asked the son-in-law who's representing Ms. Michelson, if anything else was in the pipeline. He said not yet. So that's that.
I believe the resident is not residing there.
I don't think so. I don't really know.
Okay.
She'd be quite elderly. Yeah, not sure. The only other thing I was going to say on this is, I guess just really briefly, on the Ann Oliver house, I'd asked for Essie and her board to get us something by the 5th. It didn't happen. And I think given that the village still owns it, maybe we just go ahead with the landmarking through the village, which would mean maybe Stephen, you and I sit down and just get that draft to the next stage.
Sure.
And of course we can present it, but I just feel like they
Okay.
have so many other things going.
I was talking to Carol Lee.
Oh, okay. Okay. Would she be a point person?
I guess she could be, but I think Josephine Butler is also working. with
Okay.
them. But I do think there are people who are. I mean, that's old. I don't know. Make the 70s.
I see Carol Lee a lot. Excuse me, and I'd be happy to
Yeah,
just
just
check in
as
with
a
her.
formal
and-
ask.
Yeah.
Yeah, I spoke with my neighbor Kate, but she's not on that committee. She just sort of put in somebody else's here. And then the guideline sheets, Shane and I were meant to meet today before this to try to move that along, but we'll try to do that by the May meeting. Camilla, can we have a brief update on how things are going with the art show?
Yes, we have secured the judges back from our members. He was very happy with the ask.
Okay.
Is there Carol, did you keep it? I didn't hear you.
I said that we secured the judges for the art show. Zach from Leeds is one of them, Valentina from the art gallery and training. Is the second, and I made an executive decision, if I may say, with John from Girolico, since he has
nice.
helped us
Yeah.
the art show for
Oh,
many
no.
years. And,
We agree. Wonderful.
and people help behind it as well, like always.
Oh, good.
Every time I go to the library, I see him. He's
having trouble.
He loves going to the library. I get it. I mean,
Yeah, why not?
yeah, I do too.
That's good.
There might just be some things that we need to discuss about the reception, which is on Saturday, May 13,
Right.
between 1 and 3 o'clock, just to see what we bring, but how to prepare for it, if we have a budget or.
Let's find out if we have a budget that has been granted in years past. It wasn't a huge budget. I think it was $50 or $100.
A bit more than 50.
You think more than,
Yeah.
okay. Budget for reception. Okay,
The times were, what time is the reception? 1:30? 1 and 3, okay.
Yes, and the announcements.
2 o'clock announcements, if you need to.
In the past, members prepared some things, cookies or devil dance or whatever. I don't know if you are comfortable doing that this year.
Bring something, sure.
I'm happy to bring something.
And then we can buy drinks and cheese, and kind of fruits, that sort of.
Right,
Sure.
that's great.
But we can, confer about this.
Do we want to confirm by email? Because I think
Yeah.
with a meeting on the 8th, that doesn't leave us a ton of time. So maybe we. Okay,
And I've gotten some responses already.
good. Thank you, Camilla. That's great. So that's, don't forget, that's May 13th, 1 to 3. With 2 p.m. announcements. That gives the judges time to confer. Good. The budget report is as represented here. The one thing that I have to confess is that I missed the one email back in late January asking for the budget. So this has never happened before. Welcome to my world. Nancy went ahead and put in the same budget as last year, which should be sufficient. The one thing is Valerie's hours are definitely rising because of, longer meetings and more to do. So I did ask, I thanked her for doing that and asked for a little more, a few more hours for Valerie, just to make sure we don't run out. We won't run out this year, but next year it could be a problem.
Yeah, 10:30.
Val, your computer still okay? Okay.
But I do want to talk to Tim about, we have to get this working so that it's not a crisis. I mean, like, you followed all the directions. I don't know why. There has to be, if this is the new meeting room, it's got, and we're committing to this. The one thing that I think we should talk about tonight is a matter for executive session. So could we, I think everything else can probably wait or be done by email.
I move we go into executive session to discuss personnel matters.
Those in favor, okay. And as soon as we go off.
Recording for me.
And this is still on. Should I turn this off at this point, Val? Phil, if that's.